Chapter 2550. To borrow troops from the divine dynasty Hua, Li Renzu sneered sarcastically. Brat, this is the destruction caused by the ancient god's corpse spirit that you awakened. Now, the Crimson Moon Imperial City sees you as the god of plague. Everyone wants to catch you and beat you to death. Are you sure you want to enter the palace and seek an audience with the Crimson Moon Ancient Emperor? Of course, the grudge between me and the Ancient Emperor is purely a misunderstanding. Even if the entire Crimson Moon Imperial City wants to kill me, the Ancient Emperor of Crimson Moon will definitely do his best to protect me. However, before entering, I will allow you to set up a heaven and earth altar. Yifei's expression turned ugly when he saw how badly the ancient god's corpse spirit was damaged. He had no choice but to stop. He randomly chose an empty spot and began to summon the heaven and earth altar. As a former sorcerer emperor, Yifei was naturally proficient in sorcerer techniques. As he cast his sorcery, the entire sky above Crimson Moon Imperial City was immediately filled with dark clouds. It was as if a great devil was about to invade from the void. The residents of the Imperial City who had just experienced the tragic battle with the ancient god's corpse spirit were all trembling with fear. They thought that the ancient god's corpse spirit had returned. Huali Renzu and Berserker Renzu were baffled by Yifei's antics. They felt that Yifei was either crazy or a fool. Now that the Crimson Moon Holy Dynasty hated Yifei to the core, not only did Yifei walk right into their trap, he even dared to challenge the royal family again. He was clearly courting death. Could it be that Yimo knows that he has offended too many forces, so he gave up and wants to use his own death to exchange for a chance of survival in Qingzhou? Huali Renzu guessed coldly. Only Long Guang and Long Jiaojiao, who followed Yifei, vaguely understood Yifei's intention. They were secretly worried for Yifei. After all, the earthly sovereign spirit had completely dissipated. Yifei's summoning of the heaven and earth altar had frightened the Crimson Moon Ancient Emperor. Otherwise, the furious Ancient Emperor of the Crimson Moon wouldn't mind swallowing Yifei alive. Who dares to behave atrociously in my Crimson Moon Imperial City? Yifei's act of summoning the heaven and earth altar quickly angered the Crimson Moon royal family. A large group of divine lords and Renzu had already rushed over after hearing the news. The person leading them was the Crimson Moon Ancient Emperor's trusted aide, the Imperial College's Vice-Chancellor Zheng Tai. When they saw that the person performing the ritual was none other than Yifei, whom the Crimson Moon Imperial clan hated so much, even the human ancestor and Zheng Tai were stunned. The few members of the royal family who had rushed over felt as though they had met their mortal enemy. Their eyes instantly turned red. The heavens have opened their eyes. Yimo, you actually took the initiative to come here to die. Today, you shall return my imperial city, return my ancient imperial heavens, return my imperial family, and return my lost Renzu. Fight, kill. Seeing Yimo is like seeing an enemy. Don't say anything. Kill him on the spot. Some of the princes were already furious and prepared to attack. This roar finally woke Zheng Tai and Renzu up. Others didn't know why Yifei had summoned the heaven and earth altar, but Zheng Tai and Renzu, who had experienced the battle on Demonic Mountain, knew very well that Yifei was clearly summoning the earthly emperor's spirit again. Everyone stop. Without the ancient emperor's orders, no one is allowed to attack. Young Master Yi, let's talk things over. Don't be rash. Zheng Tai and Renzu reacted as though they were facing a great enemy. They actually turned around and protected Yifei with all their might. Berserker Renzu and Huali Renzu were completely confused. Even the royal family of the Crimson Moon Empire looked at Zheng Tai in shock. However, Zheng Tai didn't explain. In the palace, the awakened ancient Emperor Crimson Moon was also secretly shocked. This brat is indeed a demon. Demonic Mountain had already let him off, but this time he actually went overboard and came to the Imperial City to cause trouble. Although he was furious when he saw the heaven and earth altar that could appear at any time and the earthly Emperor's spirit that could walk out of the altar at any time, the ancient Emperor Crimson Moon could only suppress his anger and ask coldly, Yifei, I've already let bygones be bygones. Why are you here? The ancient emperor, Crimson Moon, vaguely had the intention of sending Yi Fei off. The furious princes were all dumbfounded. Berserker Rinzu and Huali Rinzu were even more dumbfounded. They had sent Yi Fei here to see how Yi Fei would die. However, not only did the ancient Emperor Crimson Moon have no intention of killing Yi Fei, but his tone was actually quite polite. Hearing the ancient god Crimson Moon's voice, Yi Fei finally breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that he had made the right bet this time. The ancient Emperor Crimson Moon had been cautious all his life. As long as he didn't know that the earthly Emperor's spirit had been completely destroyed, the ancient Emperor Crimson Moon wouldn't dare to take the risk and attack him. Thinking of this, Yi Fei didn't hold back anymore. He directly cupped his hands in the direction of the palace and said, "Ancient Emperor, I'm not here to cause trouble. I just want to borrow an army from the ancient Emperor. This demon Yi is crazy. He actually wants to borrow soldiers from the Divine Dynasty?" Berserker Rinzu and Huali Rinzu sneered. They felt that Yi Fei had most likely gone mad while cultivating demonic techniques in the Demon Continent. The princes of the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty were all furious. They couldn't wait to beat Yi Fei to death. "Demon Yi, are you crazy? You're lucky that the Divine Dynasty didn't kill you. How dare you ask to borrow soldiers from the Divine Dynasty? Father, please allow us to kill this demon." Ignoring the clamor of the princes and the mockery of the others, Yi Fei just walked up to the heaven and earth altar with his hair draped over his shoulders and his sword in hand. A huge phantom of the ancient Emperor Crimson Moon suddenly appeared in the palace. "Are you threatening me?" "It's not a threat. I'm just giving your majesty a chance to atone for your sins. If your majesty agrees, I'll remember this favor. If you don't agree, I'll make you pay for the blood debt of the human tribe, the heavenly palace of despair, and the spirit immortal tribe." Yi Fei didn't say this out loud. He was taking a gamble. He was betting that the more he said and the more secrets he revealed, the more the ancient Emperor Crimson Moon would be wary of him and think that he could summon the earthly Emperor's spirit again. In the beast-marked space, Xiao Chao's eyes turned red when he heard Yi Fei mention the blood debt of the spirit immortal tribe. He grabbed the dragon turtle's tail tightly and was ready to rush out and fight side by side with Yi Fei. However, the ancient Emperor Crimson Moon, who had always been cautious and even a little afraid of death, didn't dare to gamble like Yi Fei when he saw the heaven and earth altar gradually appearing. After all, Yi Fei was just a nobody who could gamble. The ancient Emperor Crimson Moon had a family and a business. He was also the ancient emperor. The ancient Emperor Crimson Moon only wanted to live a little longer and find the way to become a god. He had already lost the courage to risk his life. After a moment of silence, the ancient Emperor Crimson Moon made a compromise. "All right, I agree to let you borrow the troops. However, I have a condition." "What condition?" "It's not too late to discuss this condition after you resolve the crisis in Qingzhou. Zheng Tai, the Imperial College's Imperial Guards, listen up. I order you to lead the Imperial Guards and follow Yi Fei to Qingzhou to quell the rebellion. Although the Imperial College has declined, the Divine Land is still under my control." Chapter 25:51. Chapter 2, The Last Retreat. They even sent the Yulin Royal Guards, the strongest force in the Divine Dynasty. That was the strongest army of the Divine Dynasty, and the Violet Dragon King was once a member of the Yulin Royal Guards. But now, he had been assigned to Yi Fei by the Emperor of the Ancients and was even under his command. Mo Fei. This brat is the same as the Amethyst Dragon King. Is he an illegitimate son that Imperial Father secretly nurtured? Many princes secretly gnashed their teeth. They hated Yi Fei even more. Liu Henmo and the other warriors of the demon state were full of admiration for Yi Fei. He was able to fight against Rinzu and Emperor Weigu as a Lord God. Just this action alone was enough to shock the world. Mad Warrior Rinzu and Hua Li Rinzu's expressions changed drastically. They wanted to leave the Imperial City to report this shocking news to the Deathmatch Palace Master. At this moment, on the heaven and earth altar, Yi Fei ordered in a deep voice, "Zheng Tai of the Imperial College, listen up. Quickly take down these two Rinzu for me." Don't make any mistakes. Brat, how dare you? Berserker Rinzu and Huali Rinzu were enraged. They had come here to see how Yi Fei would die. But in the end, Yi Fei didn't even cross the river before he started burning bridges. However, Zhang Tai didn't care about that. He knew very well how terrifying Yi Fei's backer was. After receiving the ancient emperor's order, Zhang Tai took out a tiger head commander's seal without hesitation. Imperial guards, listen up, kill, kill, kill. The war drums shook the heavens, and the divine abilities illuminated the world. Troop after troop of soldiers charged toward the capital city of the Tianwu Kingdom from all directions. This capital city used to be the palace of the Baiyu nation. Later on, the Baiyu nation was occupied by Yi Fei and changed its name to the Tianwu Kingdom. This palace then became the headquarters of the Earth Domain. Not only were all the experts of the Earth Domain gathered here, but all the experts of the entire Qingzhou were also gathered here. Ever since the appearance of the Heavenly Martial Kingdom, Emperor Zhao Xingxiong had great talent and strategy. With the assistance of the Quasi-Emperor of Tian Fa, the Supreme Dean, the Guardian Elder, and other experts of the older generation, as well as the support of Dong Fangyu, Lin Tianjiao, and the others, the Heavenly Martial Kingdom had swept across the Green Province and was unrivaled. They had gradually created a true Iron Army. Coupled with the guidance of Rizu, the support of the Heavenly Dao Tree Lord, Lord Teng Shi, Lord Pan Wang, and the others, the Green Province's techniques and remarkable abilities had already developed to a level that was not inferior to that of the Divine Prefecture. Other than the resources that the Green Province could not compare to, in terms of the combat strength of martial artists and the concentration of national power, the entire Tianwu Kingdom could be said to have gathered the essence of the entire Earth Domain and the Green Province. For a month, the allied forces of the Sword Palace and the Wind Cloud Palace attacked the imperial city of the Tianwu Kingdom fiercely. However, they were defeated time and time again. The number of soldiers who died in the siege was even more than the total number of soldiers who died in the battle with the Qingzhou army in the wilderness. Not only did a large number of heavenly venerables and sovereigns die in this battle, but a large number of the Lord of Heaven and Dao lords also died in this battle. Even 2 divine lords in the allied forces were killed by Zhao Qianjun and Di Fan respectively. This greatly affected the morale of the army. However, the Tianwu Kingdom had also paid a huge price to achieve this result. The entire Qingzhou army had lost 1/3 of its members, and a large number of Qingzhou experts who had been recruited over the years had also died. Most importantly, the resources of Qingzhou were too scarce. Not only were there few martial arts techniques, but it was also difficult to mine Xian stones and Xian veins. On the other hand, the allied forces of the Sword Palace and the Wind Cloud Palace had rich resources because they were backed by the Divine Land. They could have an endless supply of Xian stones and Xian veins, pills, and treasures to strengthen their attacks and boost their morale. However, although the Divine Land was strong, the Qingzhou side had Rizu and the 8-armed sword demon, Tu Rinzu, as well as the Heavenly Path Tree Lord and the Lord Pan Palace, 2 super spiritual adhesion grandmasters who were proficient in the way of spiritual adhesion. There were also Tian Jinzi, Di Jinzi, and the Formation Fairy, 3 extremely abnormal array grandmasters. After the divine array in the Earth Domain was combined with the spiritual adhesion in the Heaven Domain, Tian Jinzi and the other 2 array grandmasters had joined forces with the Heavenly Path Tree Lord and turned the entire Tianwu Royal City into an eternal divine array that could withstand Rinzu's attacks. This was also the reason why the allied forces had been defeated repeatedly. As long as they did not break this eternal divine array, they would not be able to break into the royal city and completely destroy the Tianwu Kingdom and Qingzhou. However, even if the allied forces broke through the eternal divine array, the Quasi-Emperor of Tianfa had a last resort, which was for everyone to return to the Earth Domain through the immortal spirit bridge built by the Heavenly Path Divine Tree. However, that would mean the failure of the entire Earth Domain. No one could guarantee that everyone would have a chance to enter the Heaven Domain after retreating to the Earth Domain. Therefore, Unless there was no other choice, no one was willing to use the last chance to retreat. Everyone was doing their best, hoping to withstand the Allied forces' attacks. There were also more people who were looking forward to Yi Fei's appearance. However, 10 days had passed, 1 month had passed, and 1.5 months had passed. Even with the eternal divine array, it was on the verge of collapse under the Allied forces' attacks. Yi Fei still had not appeared. Why hasn't the human emperor appeared yet? Many warriors of the Earth domain had begun to feel pessimistic. Could it be that the rumors of the Allied forces were true? That the witch emperor had died in the demon continent at the hands of the emperor of the ancients? Many wizards were doubtful, but there were also some who believed that Yi Fei was still alive. Xia Jun, Luo Xing, Yi Shanshan, and Dongfeng Yu stood on the city wall every day, looking forward to Yi Fei's appearance. Yi Xiaochan also stood on the city wall with her divine sword on her back. This stubborn sword goddess only hoped that if Yi Fei returned one day, he would be the first to see her waiting. Lu Qing and Bai Yanran did the same. As for the juniors like Mad Dog, Bai Shizhong, Zhao Qianjun, Fu Renjia, Peng Bei, and Long Xing, they had to go out of the city every day to fight with the geniuses of the Allied forces who were at the same level as them. They also shared part of the pressure of the Allied forces' siege. However, after more than a month of continuous fighting, even an Iron Man would be exhausted. On the other hand, the Allied forces continued to send Taoists and divine emperors to challenge them. The Allied forces' goal was simple. They wanted to exhaust Zhao, Qianjun, and the others so that they would not have a chance to escape when the Allied forces besieged the city. Especially Di Fan, who was an innate saint, was the main target of the Allied forces. During this period, Di Fan fought fiercely with Zhang Feng and Nalan Shui Yao, and he was not at a disadvantage. In the end, even Jiang Hui could not help but intervene in the battle. However, he was almost killed by Di Fan. In their anger, Zhang Feng, Jiang Hui, and Nalan Shui Yao actually abandoned their previous enmity and joined forces to fight Di Fan in another battle. This made people feel as if they were reminded of 3 years ago on the Earth Emanations roll. Zhang Feng and the other two had also joined forces to fight Yi Fei. In the end, Yi Fei became the first seat of the Earth Emanations roll. However, in that battle, Zhang Feng and the other two were not convinced. They thought that Yi Fei was able to control the Emperor's celestial palace and open the land of the ancient god by relying on treasures and opportunistic means. If any of them could control the Emperor's celestial palace, they would be able to obtain better opportunities than Yi Fei. Chapter 2552. Beating the drums and slaughtering a city, the battle in the sky continued. Zhang Feng unleashed the Battle King's decree. This primordial sacred art had become even more terrifying after Zhang Feng had broken through to the monarch god realm. In battle, he seemed to have transformed into the Battle King, able to fight against the heavens and the earth. There was nothing he couldn't defeat. Beside Zhang Feng was Nalan Shui Yao, the hidden genius of the Nalan family. He had the bloodline of a half-demon. The primordial sacred art, the demon emperor scripture, seemed to have been prepared for him. Billowing demon aura surged, turning into countless roaring demon beasts. As they fought to their heart's content, Nalan Shui Yao roared. His eyes turned into a pair of ancient demon eyes. His demonic gaze seemed to be able to pierce through the heavens. We both cultivate the demon emperor scripture, but I can't transform into a real demon like this person. Long Xing sighed. He also cultivated the demon emperor scripture, but he was far inferior to Nalan Shui Yao. If he grows up, he can rival Nalan Shui Yao. Mad Dog and Bai Shizhong looked at the little fatty Peng Bei at the same time. If Nalan Shui Yao could transform into an ancient demon, then Peng Bei would be the king of demons. Unfortunately, Peng Bei's realm was inferior to Nalan Shui Yao's. If they hadn't taken care of him in the previous battle, he might have died at Nalan Shui Yao's hands. It was also for this reason that Pan Wang had strictly ordered them to keep an eye on Peng Bei. However, Mad Dog and Bai Shizhong didn't know that after defending for more than a month, When Tianwu Kingdom was about to be breached, Pan Wang had another plan besides moving to the Earth Realm. That was to send the most outstanding group of young people out of Qingzhou and let them continue to develop in the Heaven Realm. Among them were Mad Dog, Bai Shizhong, and Pang Bei. It's about time. The Alliance has been attacking for a month, but Yi Fei hasn't appeared. Even if he doesn't die, it will be difficult for him to rush to Qingzhou and turn the situation around. It's time to plan for the worst. Pan Wang looked at Rizu, only to see that the usually cowardly Rizu had an expression as if he was facing death with equanimity. I should have died in the battle of the Heavenly Palace. It's my fault for being cowardly. It's good enough that I've been able to survive until now. It's just that I've implicated Dao Brother. Rizu looked at the 8-armed sword demon, only to see that the 4 faces of the sword demon's runic puppet were cold and solemn. There's no such thing as being a burden. Helping Yi Fei is my own business. He's definitely still alive. It's just that we won't be able to see his glorious moment. Boom! The runic puppet's 8 arms all gripped the divine sword tightly. It raised the sword and pointed it towards the sky. This was the signal that the slovenly Taoist, Rizu, and Pan Wang had agreed on. Upon seeing this signal, Di Fan, who was fighting outside, would come over. However, this time, Di Fan did not return. This was because when the slovenly Taoists sent out the signal, the Allied army also sent out a signal to Zhan Feng and the other 2 for the first time. Zhan Feng and Nailan Shui Yao turned a deaf ear to it. They used all their strength to fight Di Fan. However, Jiang Hui couldn't do so. His talent was originally a level lower than Zhan Feng and Nailan Shui Yao. Later on, he was defeated by Yi Fei and Yan Bing. As the strongest genius of the Deathmatch Palace, Jiang Hui couldn't bear the fate of being defeated by Di Fan again. Finally, Jiang Hui made a decision. He took out a pill and swallowed it. This pill was refined with Renzu's blood essence. It was also given to him by the evil sword Renzu and the wind and cloud Renzu. When he swallowed this pill, Jiang Hui's aura suddenly changed from the Monarch God realm to the Renzu realm. His combat strength also increased greatly at this time. He became extremely powerful and could even unleash Renzu's attack. This kind of scene was unexpected. When Di Fan reacted, Jiang Hui's Renzu's attack had already landed on one of Di Fan's clones. It even exploded the clone with a punch. After losing this clone, Di Fan's combat strength decreased rapidly. Although Zhan Feng and Nailan Shui Yao were ashamed of Jiang Hui's actions, in the end, the Allied army was about to break through Qingzhou. They also had to contribute in order to get a share of the benefits. Zhan Feng immediately roared. His fists were like the sun as he unleashed the Battle Sage Fist. It was as if the Battle King had come back to life and was filled with great pressure. Nailan Shui Yao also roared. At this moment, he seemed to have completely transformed into an ancient demon. His entire body was filled with demon chi. Countless sharp claws tore through the sky and surrounded Di Fan. Oh no, the Allied army is cheating. Di Fan is in danger. The slovenly Taoist was the first to sense that something was wrong. He controlled the rune puppet and rushed out of the imperial city without hesitation. Finally willing to come out. I have already said that as long as we trap their important figures, these traitors will come out of the imperial city. It's too bad that Zhan Feng and Nailan Shui Yao are too arrogant and did not carry out my plan. Evil Sword Renzu was very dissatisfied. If Jiang Hui, Zhan Feng, and Nailan Shui Yao all swallowed the realm explosion pill made from Renzu's blood at the same time, then not only would Di Fan's clone explode, but all 3 of his clones would die together. At that time, only his original body would be left, and any monarch god would be able to capture and kill Di Fan. However, Jiang Hui's cooperation still allowed Evil Sword Renzu to seize the opportunity to kill Di Fan. Between heaven and earth, an evil sword flew across the sky, wanting to kill Di Fan. How dare you, evil sword! At this critical moment, the slovenly Taoist controlled the rune puppet to block the evil sword light. But at this moment, Evil Sword Renzu's face suddenly sneered. As he pointed his sword forward, the evil sword light suddenly changed direction. It was originally aimed at Di Fan, but now it was aimed at the slovenly Taoist. Even the slovenly Taoist was caught off guard. 3 of the rune puppet's arms were shattered by the evil sword light. Inside the puppet, the slovenly Taoist could not help but vomit blood. He was no longer able to control the puppet and use Rinzu's power. After all, the slovenly Taoist had cut off his own cultivation. He was no longer Rinzu. His combat power was completely dependent on the rune puppet. At this moment, Evil Sword Rinzu used the evil sword to attack and destroy the rune puppet. Naturally, the slovenly Taoist could not continue to resist. Haha, Long Tua, you're indeed old and useless. Back then, you lowered your own cultivation base because you were a brute. Now that the sword's gate is gone and the divine inscription's puppet has been destroyed, let's see what face you, the old dog slave of the 9 heaven sword sovereign, have left to contend against me. Evil Sword Rinzu seemed to have a huge amount of resentment. This resentment made the evil sword stronger and more evil. It slashed out again, trying to trap Di Fan and the slovenly Taoist together. In the distance, Rinzu clapped his hands and laughed. Brother Jian, you have a good plan? As long as we trap the old and the young, Tianwu Kingdom's resistance will be broken. Everyone, break through Tianwu Kingdom and destroy Qingzhou. Today is the day. Beat the drums and massacre the city. Kill, kill, kill. Chapter 2553. Kill without mercy in the Crimson Moon Imperial City. The Imperial College's Vice-Chancellor, Zheng Tai, issued an order. 3,000 Imperial Guards appeared and bowed to Yi Fei with Rinzu in their hands. Imperial Guards, report to young Master Yi. Yimo, you will die a horrible death. It's not enough that you have offended the Sword Palace and the Storm Palace. Do you want to offend the Deathmatch Palace as well? Huali Rinzu and Berserker Rinzu were forced to kneel in front of Yi Fei by the Imperial Guards. As Rinzu, how could they tolerate this? They were fuming with anger. Berserker Rinzu was so angry that he vomited blood. Yi Fei wasn't angry when he heard this. He looked at them with a pleasant expression and said, I don't want to offend the Deathmatch Palace. You guys better not offend me either. Open the Immortal Essence Gate and let me return to Qingzhou immediately. All right, Lord Zheng, I don't think I have to pay for the teleportation fees, right? How could we? His Majesty asked us to go to war with young Master, so we should bear all the expenses. Zheng Tai forced a smile. The princes of the Divine Dynasty were all furious. The Imperial Guards were the strongest army of the Divine Dynasty. Not only did Yi Fei borrow them, but he was also stingy. The princes were furious. If it wasn't for the ancient emperor's order, and if they didn't suspect that Yi Fei might be the illegitimate son of the Crimson Moon ancient emperor like the Amethyst Dragon King and Yang Dingtian, the princes would have stomped their feet. As for Evil Sword Rinzu and Berserker Rinzu, who had their immortal essence gates taken away, they were so angry that smoke came out of their nostrils. They looked at Yi Fei angrily and sullenly as he took away their immortal essence gates, refined them, and set up the gate to Qingzhou. Boom! The region gate Yi Fei had opened was coincidentally in the middle of the battlefield between the Alliance Army and Tianwu Imperial City. As the region gate opened, the Alliance Army cheered loudly. After all, opening a region gate in the middle of the Alliance Army meant that the other party was on the Alliance Army side. Everyone in the Qingzhou Army was in despair. They were already weak against the Allied forces and could only rely on the eternal divine matrix to resist. Now, the Allied forces had strong reinforcements. It seemed that the last chance of victory for Qingzhou had disappeared. The Runhuang that Qingzhou had placed high hopes on still had not appeared. The Tian Fa Quasi-Emperor and the Grand Supreme Dean both sighed. Lu Qing and Yi Shanshan's eyes were also filled with tears. Qingzhou is in such a dangerous situation, and he still hasn't appeared. Could it be that Master won't die? He must still be alive. Yi Xiaochan stubbornly stood at the top of the city wall. She stood at the most dangerous and conspicuous place. She was filled with stubbornness and a trace of hope that was gradually extinguishing. However, just as this trace of hope was about to be extinguished by the cheers of the Allied forces, Yi Xiaochan, Lu Qing, and by Yinran's hearts suddenly skipped a beat. Ling Siki hugged a large machete and looked in the direction of the Regent Gate in surprise. Little Guohua. The cheers of the allied forces suddenly stopped. Everyone looked in disbelief at the Regent Gate in the middle of the battlefield. They saw a figure in a purple-gold battle robe striding out. Behind this figure were Long Guang, Long Jiaojiao, Lu Henmo, and a large group of demon state martial artists. Qingzhou, I'm back. Stepping out of the Regent Gate and looking at the familiar yet strange battlefield, Yi Fei was overwhelmed with emotions. Long Guang and Long Jiaojiao were also very excited. This was because they saw the half-dragon man in battle and the previous clan leader, who was controlling the broken divine pattern puppet and fighting desperately with evil Sword Renzu. Evil Sword Renzu also immediately noticed Yi Fei. His eyes were filled with extreme shock. How is this possible? Shouldn't Yi Mo have died on Celestial Demon Mountain? I'm sorry to disappoint you, Evil Sword Renzu. Last time I was forced to leave the Sword Palace, Evil Sword Renzu, you seem to have slashed me once. I'll remember that. Yi Fei smiled, then suddenly stared at Feng Yun Renzu with a dark gaze. You're Renzu from Feng Yun Palace? Have you forgotten my agreement with Feng Yun? As long as I'm alive, Feng Yun Palace can't step into Qingzhou. It's not too late to take your people and scram. Mo, how dare you? In the distance, Lord Bai Yun was both shocked and angry. Feng Yun Renzu smiled and waved his hand magnanimously. The destruction of our country is right in front of us. It's understandable that he's cursing. As Renzu, we're high above the masses and enjoy the respect of tens of thousands of people. Why should we be so calculative with a dead dog? Just kill him. Boom. Feng Yun Renzu instantly charged at Yi Fei. His attack was fast and ruthless. You have an agreement with Feng Yun, but you don't have an agreement with me. Killing you is as easy as slaughtering a dog. Feng Daio, you've gone too far. Suddenly, the forefather Zheng Tai emerged from within the domain gate, radiating the might of the forefather of all humanity. He blocked the attack of the forefather wind and cloud, which was aimed at Yi Fei. Feng Yun Renzu was shocked. Renzu, who are you? The Emperor of the Ancients was threatened and had no choice but to lend his troops to Yi Fei. This was a very embarrassing matter. How could Zheng Tai Renzu make such a big fuss about it? Not only him, but all the Imperial Guards who crossed the Celestial Gate took off their armor and put on their masks, not showing their true faces. As such, Zheng Tai Renzu naturally didn't say anything. He only looked at Yi Fei, waiting for Yi Fei's orders. Looking at the crumbling Tianwu Imperial City, Yi Fei's face turned cold. Pass down my order. Kill all the remaining members of the Alliance Army. Young Master Yi orders that all members of the Alliance Army are to be killed. The low sound of a bugle horn resounded through the sky. Following Yi Fei's order, groups of black-clothed soldiers got into formation and drove their chariots. They unleashed their mystiques and unleashed their killing intent. When this killing intent gathered together, it formed countless killing beams. Wherever the beams passed, the Alliance Army's soldiers would immediately fall, killed mercilessly. And these were all people of Jianghu. The Emperor of Jianghu, who was in charge of the Alliance Army, roared, Yi Mo, it's not enough that you killed my crown prince. How dare you kill my soldiers? Men, sound the drums. All troops, attack and kill Yi Mo. Kill, 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 kill. The Alliance Army's soldiers weren't frightened by the Imperial Royal Guards. Instead, they got into formation and clashed with the Imperial Royal Guards like two waves of steel. Further away in the sky, Evil Sword Renzu suddenly opened its vertical eye and looked at Yi Fei coldly. Although you're strong, you've offended too many factions. Today you must die. That's not necessarily true. Evil Sword Renzu, your opponent is me. Lightning flashed in the sky as a heavily injured lightning beast charged out of Tianwu Imperial City. Yi Fei, you've returned at the right time. Save Defan first, then destroy the Alliance Army. Defan? This guy had also returned and had broken through to the Monarch God level. Only then did Yi Fei see a purple figure in the billowing demonic aura. It was constantly dodging and evading Zhang Feng and Nalan Shui's attacks. However, while Di Fan could block the mystiques of people at the same level as him, he couldn't block Jiang Hui, who had taken the Realm Burst pill. Chapter 2554. The Sun and the Moon Fall. Bang! Di Fan tried his best to resist, but he was still no weaker than Jiang Hui, Zhang Feng, and Nalan Shui Yao. The three golden bodies of morality were all destroyed, and even his main body was severely injured. Fortunately, I managed to hold on until Yi Fei returned. With him around, I can die without regrets. Di Fan closed his eyes and waited for death to come. At this moment, a huge destructive sword radiance turned into a Tai Chi symbol and blocked in front of Di Fan. Then, Yi Fei's cold voice entered Di Fan's ears. "Brother Di, you've worked hard. Leave the rest to me. Be careful. The three of them have extraordinary talents and special elixirs that can unleash Rinzu's attack. Why don't you and I work together? Maybe we have a chance to win." Di Fan spat out blood and struggled to fight. Suddenly, a black mouth stretched out and bit one of Di Fan's legs. It dragged him away as if it was afraid that he could not run fast enough. Jiang Hui, Zhang Feng, and Nalan Shui were all enraged by this scene. "It's you again, you stupid black turtle." Back in the land of the ancient god, it was the dragon turtle that had caused them to miss a chance to kill Yi Fei. Now, the black turtle had actually dared to appear again. Jiang Hui was enraged as he unleashed the power of Rinzu once again. After consuming the Realm Burst elixir, Jiang Hui seemed to have really transformed into Rinzu. His martial arts mystiques had all improved explosively. Zhang Feng and Nalan Shui Yao looked at each other. Suddenly, they did the same thing. Like Jiang Hui, they took out exploding realm pills and swallowed them. "Yi Fei, the disgrace of the Earth Carnage Proclamation, we must make you pay it back." After Nalan Shui consumed the bursting realm pill, his entire person seemed to have transformed into a human-shaped ancient demon. His attacks became even more terrifying. He was like an ancient demon that could move unhindered between heaven and earth. Kill. Invincible Battle King. Zhang Feng's chi and blood soared into the sky like a golden war king. His fists split the sky, his feet crushed the earth, his body was like the sun, and his chi was like thunder. At the same time, the terrifying Sacred Battle Fist also underwent a shocking transformation, becoming the strongest Sacred Battle Fist of the immemorial Battle Monarch. He wanted to crush Yi Fei in an unrivaled manner. Seeing this scene, the Supreme Headmaster, the Tianfa Quasi-Emperor Xia Jun, Peng Bei, Dongfang Yu, and the others all broke out in a cold sweat. After all, Yi Fei was the hope of the Tianwu Kingdom and the Azure Province. If Yi Fei was defeated, the Tianwu Kingdom would suffer a crushing defeat as well. Di Fan even disregarded his injuries and burned his own saint's blood to increase his battle prowess. He wanted to help Yi Fei share some of the pressure. However, Yi Fei's ancient godlike roar could be heard from a void. The tyrannical ancient god golden body bloomed with dazzling light, blocking the double attacks of Zhang Feng and Nalan Shui Yao. At the same time, Yi Fei's fists suddenly shone like stars. "Jiang Hui, I'll let you off once on the Earth Emanations leaderboard, but I won't let you off a second time. I want you to die for everything you did to Di Fan and the Azure Province." Boom! Heaven and earth collapsed, and the sun and moon fell. Intense light from the 7 stars came from the void and surrounded Yi Fei's body. Yi Fei had used the Death Battle Palace's strongest technique, the Big Dipper Mystical Fist. When this fist technique was used, the terrifying fist radiance blasted a huge black hole in heaven and earth. The eyes of many spectating forces almost popped out of their sockets. It wasn't that they hadn't seen the Big Dipper Mystical Fist before, and Jiang Hui had used it more than once. However, Jiang Hui's Big Dipper Mystical Fist was definitely not as terrifying as Yi Fei's. This was because Jiang Hui had only used his profound energy to activate the Big Dipper mystical fist. On the other hand, Yi Fei didn't only have profound energy, he also had a trace of the ancient god's power. It was also this unique power that made Yi Fei's Big Dipper mystical fist so terrifying. It was like the 7 great ancient stars of the immemorial era, descending from the starry sky and killing enemies. This is impossible. I have studied the Big Dipper mystical fist for 30 years. Could it be that you have secretly learned it for 3 years? I don't believe it. I refuse to accept it. Kill Big Dipper Chang. Jiang Hui had suffered a huge blow. At this moment, he was actually burning his bloodline recklessly while consuming the Realm Burst Elixir to increase the power of his Big Dipper mystical fist. Even so, his Big Dipper mystical fist radiance was still completely crushed by the ancient god radiance contained in Yi Fei's Big Dipper mystical fist. The moment the two fists collided like stars, Jiang Hui's Big Dipper 7 stars all exploded. However, Yi Fei still had 3 ancient stars left. With a murderous aura, he struck down furiously. In the end, you aren't the real Renzu. You can unleash Renzu's attack power, but your willpower and superpowers are too weak. Hearing this, Zhan Feng and Nalan Shui Yao's expressions turned ugly. Indeed, the Realm Burst Elixir could allow them to temporarily break through Renzu's realm, but this realm was very unstable. They could directly crush ordinary divine emperors, but against an invincible divine emperor like Yi Fei, their advantage was very weak. Sensing Yi Fei's murderous aura, Jiang Hui suddenly felt a strong sense of fear in his heart. No, you can't kill me. Palace Lord, save me. The strong sense of fear finally made Jiang Hui take out his life-saving treasure, which was the projection of the Quasi-Emperor's doppelganger. As the scroll unfurled, the projection of the Deathmatch Palace Lord's doppelganger walked out furiously. Stop! Jiang Hui, you can't kill. Shut your dog mouth. I can't kill him, but am I supposed to let him kill me and kill my best friend? Scram! The terrifying ancient star disappeared. A terrifying black cauldron appeared in the void. It was the cauldron of the ghost god, Yi Fei's greatest weapon against Renzu. When Yi Fei grabbed this cauldron, which was as big as a mountain, and threw it out furiously, the entire sky was smashed to pieces by this terrifying cauldron. The projection of the Deathmatch Palace Lord's doppelganger exploded in the air. The moment the projection disappeared, the Deathmatch Palace Lord saw Jiang Hui's body being instantly smashed into a pile of meat paste by the ghost god's cauldron. At the same time, a deep and ancient divine language came out of Yi Fei's mouth. Although he was furious, Yi Fei didn't forget to plunder Jiang Hui's bloodline. He immediately used the Azura blood bead, which contained strong bloodline fluctuations, and it fell into Yi Fei's hands. Demon, he's a complete demon. Some of the forces watching the battle were so frightened by Yi Fei's terrifying methods that their legs turned to jelly. After taking the Realm Burst pill, Zhan Feng and Nalan Shui, who were originally full of confidence, felt their hands and feet turn cold. At the beginning of the battle, no one had expected that the powerful Jiang Hui would die like this. Moreover, Yi Fei was so crazy that he didn't even give face to a quasi-emperor like the Deathmatch Palace Lord. Crazy, he's completely crazy. Even if we don't do anything, he won't live for long. Nalan Shui, let's go. Facing the same enemy and fighting together, Zhan Feng and Nalan Shui undoubtedly became close friends. When they saw Yi Fei smash Jiang Hui to death with the cauldron, Zhan Feng and Nalan Shui decisively turned around and left the battlefield. Chapter 2555 Lu Baiyun's Death, Baiyun God, I'll take your life. The Guatian cauldron glowed brightly and formed a Guatian door. Yi Fei stepped on the Guatian cauldron and charged toward Baiyun God, bypassing countless superpowers. Baiyun God's face darkened. Evil Sword Renzu and Renzu of the Wind and Cloud were furious. After all, Baiyun God was the former monarch of the Baiyun nation. If Baiyun God was still alive, it would be reasonable for them to help Baiyun God take back his homeland. But if Baiyun God died, they would have no justification. The two Rinzhu of the wind and cloud couldn't accept such a result. Unfortunately, Rinzhu of the wind and cloud was blocked by Zheng Tai and Rinzhu of the wind and cloud, and evil sword Rinzhu couldn't break free from the attacks of Rizu's Thunder Beast. All they could do was look at Yin Tianjin and Li Moran and yell, "Yin Tianjin, Li Moran, you have to stop this person no matter what." As they spoke, the two Rinzhu of the wind and cloud each took out a realm explosion pill and threw it to them, hoping that they could use Rinzhu's cultivation to block Yi Fei's attack. Li Moran and Yin Tianjin, who hated Yi Fei, didn't hesitate. They took the realm explosion pills and swallowed them immediately. The terrifying power of Rinzhu exploded from their bodies. "Yimo, today is the day you die." Bai Yin God roared in fear. He also took out a realm explosion pill and swallowed it. He was different from Zhan Feng and Nalan Shui Yao. Bai Yin God and Li Moran were both senior Rinzhu. They had been Rinzhu for many years and were in the late Rinzhu realm. The power of Rinzhu they could unleash would only be stronger. Li Moran displayed the God King's chaotic world. Li Moran's entire being seemed to have turned into a terrifying God King, slashing the world with his saber and slaying gods and devils. On the other side, Bai Yin Divine Lord was equally ruthless. He conjured countless wind, rain, and thunder. Suddenly, the wind and rain transformed into countless blade flashes that could tear apart the world and disperse a warrior's sky palace and soul. This was Wind and Cloud Hall's ultimate technique, wind and rain thunder. It could condense the power of celestial phenomenon and turn it into a killing technique. Seeing this scene, Yin Tianjin's confidence was boosted. He was no longer afraid of the cauldron of ghosts and deities. Instead, he erupted with the most resplendent yin-yang divine light, reversing yin and yang and shattering heaven and earth. He attacked Yi Fei from the side. "Yimo, your time has come." Seeing so many divine sovereigns targeting Yi Fei, Nalan Shui Yao, who had already escaped, suddenly returned from afar. In the entire divine prefecture, Feng Yun was already pressuring them to the point of suffocation. Now, they definitely did not want another Feng Yun to appear in the divine prefecture. The only way was to unite everyone's strength and kill Yi Fei. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the Grand Supreme Dean and the others changed abruptly. Rizu and the slovenly Taoist also roared. After all, no matter how strong Yi Fei's cauldron of ghosts and deities was, he was only a divine lord. Yi Fei could resist Rinzhu, but how could he resist so many divine lords who had swallowed the realm burst elixir and could unleash Rinzhu's attack? It seems that the outcome of this battle is already decided. Yi Fei's performance is amazing, but the foundations of Sword Palace and Wind and Cloud Hall are still too strong. After all, Sword Palace was one of the top 10 forces in the Divine Prefecture. Due to the rise of Feng Yun, Wind and Cloud Hall was gradually on par with the top 10 forces. On the other hand, although Qingzhou had many warriors with potential, it was at an absolute disadvantage in terms of foundation. This was also the reason why Yi Fei had taken the risk to borrow troops from the ancient emperor of Crimson Moon. Yi Fei knew very well that even if he rushed back to Qingzhou with the strength in his hands, he would not be able to resolve the crisis in Qingzhou. If he wanted Qingzhou to be safe, he had to have the strength to match the top 10 forces in the Divine Prefecture. Where are the commanders of the Imperial Royal Guards? Yi Fei's loud roar suddenly came from the void. Following his roar, 4 people in frost iron battle armor suddenly walked out of the immortal essence gate that had been open all this time. Unlike the other masked Imperial Royal Guards, these 4 people did not bother to cover their faces. This was because they were the strongest commanders of the Imperial Royal Guards and the most loyal subordinates of the ancient emperor of Crimson Moon. Originally, Yi Fei did not want to use this force. He had decided to save it for when he attacked Sword Palace and Wind and Cloud Hall. However, the threat of evil Sword Rinzhu and Wind and Cloud Rinzhu, as well as the siege of Bai Yun God and the others, finally angered Yi Fei. The 4 commanders of the Imperial Royal Guards? How is this possible? Why are you helping Yi Fei? Seeing these 4 people, The entire alliance was in an uproar. However, the four of them did not make sound. The moment they appeared, they unleashed the power of Renzu and attacked Limoran, Yin Tianjin, Zhan Feng, and Nalan Shuiyao. As for Bai Yun God, they did not attack him. This was because Yifei had already driven the ghost deity cauldron and rushed towards Bai Yun God after he had shown his trump card. Yimo, I'm going to fight you to the death today. Knowing that there was no way out today, Bai Yun God simply burned his bloodline and soul. He began to fight with all his might. The 8 storms, together with lightning and thunder, slashed towards Yifei. However, Yifei did not even look at it. His body continued to emit the dazzling, ancient god golden body. This golden body allowed Yifei, who was in the Divine Lord realm, to block Renzu's attack. At the same time, the ghost deity cauldron under Yifei's feet emitted a dazzling light. This cauldron allowed Yifei, who was in the Divine Lord realm, to unleash power comparable to Renzu's. This combination of attack and defense allowed Yifei to completely ignore Bai Yun God's attack. The moment they clashed, a divine cauldron was already shining with the light of the 9 serenities. It shattered the void and also shattered Bai Yun God's lightning. Kill! Yifei's angry roar shook the void and tore the lightning apart. Everything started because of you, so it should end because of you. Old dog Bai Yun, do you remember what I said? If you have any problems, come at me, not my family. Boom! The huge ghost deity cauldron was raised and smashed towards Bai Yun God continuously. Bai Yun God used all his strength to try and block it, but the power of the ghost deity cauldron was too terrifying. This was a soul cauldron that was personally formed by the ghost emperor and refined by an ancient god. Its power was so terrifying that even the real Renzu would find it difficult to block it, let alone Bai Yun God, who was just a fake Renzu who had swallowed a realm-burst elixir to forcibly raise his cultivation level. In the void, Yifei's ghost deity cauldron only attacked 3 times. The first attack broke the mystique, the second shattered the protective dark energy, and the last attack directly destroyed Bai Yun God's true body in front of everyone's horrified eyes. Bam! Chapter 2556. Evil Sword Doomsday. This scene deeply shocked Zhan Feng and Nalan Shui. They had thought that they would be able to kill Yifei if they joined forces. After all, no matter how talented Yifei was, he would no longer be a threat if he died. However, no one had expected that there would be more than one Yifei hiding behind him. There were a total of 5 human ancestors. In particular, the identities of these Renzu were so special. They were the 4 commanders of the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty's Yulin Royal Guards. Since the commanders were here, the identity of the masked army in black who had helped Yifei in the battle was obvious. It's the Yulin Royal Guards of the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty, the strongest army in the Divine Prefecture. Strange, doesn't the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty hate Yifei to the core? Why would they lend their troops to Yifei this time? Could it be that this is a ploy by the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty and Yimo so that the Divine Dynasty can besiege the Sword Palace and the Storm Palace to weaken their strength? No matter what, this Battle of Qingzhou is really unexpected. If Qingzhou is not destroyed and Yifei does not die, he will definitely be in the Divine Prefecture. He will shine brightly and become another Storm Palace. Look, the 4 commanders are attacking the evil Sword Renzu together. Boom! The heavens and earth roared and exploded in all directions. The 4 commanders did not completely obey Yifei's orders to kill everyone in the Alliance army. Instead, they were specifically targeting Renzu of the Sword Palace. Although Yifei was dissatisfied, he understood the commander's concerns. After all, the strongest and most promising person in the Divine Prefecture was Storm Palace, the one who could break through Renzu and become an emperor of the ancients. If the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty pressured the Storm Palace too much now, once Storm Palace grew and became an emperor of Renzu, it would definitely bring great disaster to the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty. However, when facing the Sword Palace, they did not have such misgivings. After all, the current Sword Palace had been divided into two factions after the disappearance of the Nine-Heaven Swordmaster. The collapse of the Sword School had caused the Sword Palace's power to be greatly weakened. The Sword Palace was known as one of the top 10 forces in the Divine Prefecture, but it no longer lived up to its name. The Crimson Moon Holy Court naturally did not care much about Evil Sword Rinzhu. In fact, they were more than happy to kill Evil Sword Rinzhu and kick the Sword Palace out of the top 10 forces. Yi Fei wasn't the only one who understood this. As the leader of the Outer Sword Palace, Rinzhu the Evil Sword Rinzhu quickly realized why the four commanders had attacked him. Human ancestor Evil Sword could not help but feel great grief and indignation. He had become the human ancestor and controlled the Outer Sword Palace. It could be said that he could do anything he wanted, but in the end, he had fallen at the hands of Yi Fei. Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty. You are clearly asking a tiger for its skin by colluding with Yi Mo. I will definitely avenge myself today. Seeing that the situation was hopeless, Rinzhu the Evil Sword immediately abandoned the allied forces and tried to escape by himself. After all, if the allied forces were destroyed, they could gather again. As long as he was alive, the Outer Sword Palace would not be finished. Where do you think you're going, Evil Sword Rinzhu? Your end is here. Suddenly, Zheng Tai, who had been fighting with Rinzhu the Wind, attacked from behind and surrounded Evil Sword Rinzhu. As for Rinzhu the Wind, he seemed to have reached an agreement with Zheng Tai and quickly retreated with the Divine Lords of the Wind Cloud Palace. Bai Yin the Divine Lord is dead. From now on, the Wind Cloud Palace will never set foot in Qingzhou. These were the words Rinzhu the Wind had said before he retreated. It was also the most helpless compromise he had made to Yi Fei and the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty. The Wind Cloud Palace had mobilized a large force to take back Qingzhou, but in the end, they had suffered great losses. Rinzhu the Wind felt as if his old face had been slapped swollen. Rinzhu the Evil Sword looked at Yi Fei in despair. There was no anger in his eyes, only deep sorrow and grievance. Yi Fei, I would rather die than fall into your hands. Evil Sword Explosion. The evil sword in his hand opened its vertical eye and revealed a sorrowful expression. Then, Rinzhu the Evil Sword buried the evil sword with his own body and used his sword to kill the enemy. A terrifying aura spread in all directions and killed countless warriors from both sides. This cruelty and viciousness made Yi Fei furious. Evil Sword Rinzhu, you are too cruel. You slashed me with your sword that day. Today, I will return the favor. Before Rinzhu the Evil Sword could self-destruct, the Immortal Sword token had already turned into a huge black gold divine sword. It cut through the void and stabbed into Evil Sword Rinzhu's body. The powerful sword aura immediately suppressed Evil Sword Rinzhu's self-destruction. At the same time, a terrifying ancient god power had already refined Evil Sword Rinzhu's blood essence before the four commanders could fight over Evil Sword Rinzhu's corpse. Another drop of Azura blood pearl filled with Evil Sword's aura fell into Yi Fei's hands. Seeing this, Zhan Feng and Nalan Shui Yao both looked fearful. Although they were unwilling, they still ran for their lives. Yin Tianjin also ran away. At this moment, Yin Tianjin regretted provoking Yi Fei and coming to Qingzhou, but it was too late for regrets. Without waiting for Yin Tianjin to run out of his sight, Yi Fei immediately used the Azure Dragon Wings and appeared behind Yin Tianjin. Yin Tianjin, it's time to settle our scores. No, Yi Fei, I was wrong. As long as you let me go, I can give you anything. Feeling the terrifying sword might behind him, Yin Tianjin knew that he could not escape as quickly as Zhan Feng and Nalan Shui Yao. Without caring about his face, he knelt on the ground and kowtowed to Yi Fei, begging for mercy. But looking at the corpses of the Tianwu Kingdom soldiers and the people in Qingzhou, Yi Fei had no intention of letting Yin Tianjin go. The black gold divine sword in his hand had already drawn a line of blood on Yin Tianjin's neck. You, Yin Tianjin, who was kowtowing, suddenly clutched his throat tightly and looked at Yi Fei with fear and hatred. Then, he felt that his blood was being stripped away by a mysterious ancient god power. It turned into a drop of azura blood pearl and fell into Yi Fei's hand. The rank 9 Inyan bloodline and the evil sword Renzu's evil sword bloodline. These two bloodlines are not bad. Xiaochan, choose one. From now on, you are also a bloodline martial artist. After killing Yin Tianjin and Renzu's escape and death, the allied army was destroyed. Yi Fei did not care about the battle outside. Instead, he rushed up the city walls of Tianwu Royal City. Yi Xiaochan, Yi Shanshan, Lu Qing, Bai Yanran, and many others looked at Yi Fei with tears in their eyes. However, no one took the initiative to speak to him. Instead, they all looked at Yi Xiaochan. In the years that Yi Fei had disappeared, only Yi Xiaochan stubbornly believed that Yi Fei was still alive. She stood at the top of the city gates, stubbornly waiting for Yi Fei. Yi Fei would give her the best bloodline just because of their strong relationship as master and disciple. However, looking at the two bloodlines, Yi Xiaochan's eyes did not show any excitement. She only threw herself into Yi Fei's arms with tears in her eyes and said loudly, "Master, I don't want the bloodline. I just want you to be safe." Chapter 2557. Ruins of the Ancient Sect. Master, these bloodlines are not my own. If they are not my own, there will never be room for improvement. Rather than being confined to someone else's bloodline, I would rather use the sword in my hand to carve out my own path. Yi Fei realized that after so many years, the little girl who used to be on the verge of death had really grown up and matured. She had her own thoughts and beliefs, and Yi Fei could not object to this belief. Moreover, he believed that with Yi Xiaochan's tenacity and comprehension, she would definitely become an expert of her generation, even without a bloodline. Moreover, since she was his disciple, how could Yi Fei really let Yi Xiaochan die? Since Yi Xiaochan did not want a bloodline, Yi Fei had already decided to give the complete ancient god golden body to this disciple. After all, the ancient god golden body itself had great potential. Perhaps through the ancient god golden body, Yi Xiaochan could borrow the power of the ancient gods and give birth to a bloodline that belonged to her. Therefore, Yi Fei did not say anything else. He just carried Yi Xiaochan and walked into the void. He would impart the specific technique of the ancient god golden body to this disciple in the void. Seeing this scene, the wounded Rizu could not help but feel envious. I heard that this kid entered the land of the ancient god. He must have obtained the complete ancient god golden body. It's a pity that he did not impart it to me, but only to his disciple. Thunderdog, you should be content. Yi Fei has killed the Amethyst Dragon King, which can be considered as taking revenge for our heavenly palace of despair. As for the ancient god golden body, that kind of cultivation technique isn't something ordinary people can cultivate. It's enough for us to know about it, but we mustn't speak of it. Pan King stood beside Lightning Ancestor. He was bathed in blood, having killed many Sword Palace divine monarchs who had escaped. Among them, maybe Shinjun had died at the hands of Pan Wang. However, the one who suffered the heaviest losses was still the army of Jiangwo. The emperor of Jiangwo wanted to avenge Jian Sansheng, so he did not hesitate to use the power of the entire country to fight. He even led the coalition army. Unfortunately, in the face of Renzu's defeat and the collapse of the coalition army, the emperor of Jiangwo's army also suffered a disaster. The emperor of the Sword Country was filled with remorse and self-blame the moment his army was defeated. He swung his sword and committed suicide, causing many martial artists to sigh deeply. While teaching Yi Xiaochan, Yi Fei sensed the commotion below with his divine sense. He shook his head slightly. He had a grudge with the Jian Sansheng, but that grudge had dissipated with the destruction of the alliance and the suicide of the Jian country's emperor. This person's corpse is not to be dishonored. Give him a proper burial. Yi Fei's voice came down from the sky. The Yulin guards who were about to cut off the emperor's head immediately stopped. Zhao Fisheng, who was also an emperor, personally ordered people to build a coffin and bury the emperor. Yi Fei did not ask about what happened after that. He just entered Tianwu Imperial City and went to the best restaurant in the city to drink with a group of friends. The dragon turtle also came with D-Fan. After a period of recuperation, D-Fan's expression was clearly much better. However, when he saw Yi Fei, D-Fan's expression was inevitably complicated. After all, he had only been able to fight Zhang Feng and the other two with all his strength and barely survived. On the other hand, Yi Fei had returned and suppressed Zhang Feng. He had even killed Jiang Hui and Yin Tianjin, two great experts. This also proved that he was still inferior to Yi Fei. However, D-Fan was not discouraged by this. Instead, he said with fighting spirit, "Yi Fei, although I lost this time, I will definitely catch up to you next time." "Brother D, don't say that. Actually, I'm only slightly stronger than you." Yi Fei was very modest. However, this kind of modesty made Zhao Qianjun and the others think of how terrifying Yi Fei was when he defeated the Quasi-Emperor's projection. They could not help but have strange expressions. D-Fan snorted. "It's a miracle that you haven't been beaten to death by someone with such modesty. By the way, I heard that you obtained the ancient god's opportunity. Have you heard of the ruins of the ancient sect in the Divine Prefecture?" "Ruins of the ancient sect? What kind of place is that?" Hearing this, Yi Fei was obviously interested. Zhao Qianjun and Fu Renjia also pricked up their ears. The army of destruction asked bluntly, "D-Fan, could it be that your breakthrough to the Divine Lord level has something to do with this ancient sect?" After all, before they left the Divine Prefecture, Yi Fei and D-Fan were not very different from the rest. Yi Fei's rapid progress in cultivation was due to the ancient god's opportunity. In that case, D-Fan's rapid progress in cultivation inevitably made people think that it had something to do with the ancient sect. That's right. The reason why I could break through so quickly is related to the ancient sect. That place seems to be the most secretive place in the Divine Prefecture. At the same time as the Earth Carnage Roll contest, the ruins of the ancient sect will also open at the same time. However, this point is only known to the upper echelons of the top 10 forces. I managed to sneak in by chance and did not participate in the Earth Carnage Roll contest. Instead, I directly entered the ruins of the ancient sect. As he spoke, D-Fan took out an ancient map. This is a map of the ancient sect that I obtained from a divine lord who died in battle at the Royal Soldier Mountain. The ancient sect seems to have two parts. One part is open to those below the divine lord level, while the other part is open to those above the divine lord level. I came back this time to invite people to enter the inner sect of the ancient sect to explore the ruins. I did not expect that I would coincide with the crisis in the Divine Prefecture. Only then did everyone know the reason why D-Fan could break through so quickly. Yi Fei could not help but be greatly interested. If D-Fan could obtain the opportunity to break through to the Divine Lord level in the outer sect, then what would the inner sect have? Senior Brother Zhao, what do you think? Yi Fei thought for a while and looked at Zhao Qianjun. Zhao Qianjun did not even think and already nodded. It is said that the ancient sect is a sect that once gave birth to an ancient god. There is also a rumor in the Demon Prefecture that the current Demon Palace and Divine Palace were split from those ancient sections. Since D-Fan has found the ruins of the ancient sect, it is naturally worth going. The current strength of the Divine Prefecture is still too weak. Hearing this, Dongfang Yu, the army of destruction, and the others all sighed. Xiajun and Luo, she were even more dejected. With their talents, they would be the best in the Earth domain. However, in the Heaven domain, where bloodlines dominated, they would be too ordinary without powerful bloodlines. Sensing everyone's dejection, Yi Fei smiled and shook his head. Dongfang Yu, you don't have to worry about bloodlines. I have a few Azura blood beads here. Each of them contains a powerful bloodline. Take them and refine them. Then you will have powerful bloodlines. Since Yi Shaochan did not need bloodlines, Yi Fei went with the flow and gave them to his good brothers. Among them, Jing Wushou received the Evil Sword Rinzu's level 9 Evil Sword bloodline. Dongfang Yu received Yin Tianjin's Yin Yang bloodline. Xiajun and Luo, she received the demonic bloodline of the two Rinzu from the nest of 1,000 demons. In the end, Only the Thousand Caves old demon was left. Since the Thousand Caves old demon had destroyed himself early, Yifei could only condense a trace of his bloodline. He was unable to form a complete Azura blood bead. Yifei could not help but feel troubled. I have another bloodline left behind by the Quasi-Emperor, but it is too thin. I'm not sure if I can refine it. Who wants it? Chapter 2558. Counterattacking the Sword Palace, however, when they heard that there was only a sliver of the bloodline left and that it was unknown if the fusion would succeed, many people's eyes dimmed. After all, every martial artist only had one chance to fuse the bloodline. If they failed, they would suffer heavy losses. Seeing that no one spoke, Yifei shook his head and decided to keep the bloodline. At this time, Lin Tianjiao, who was sitting in the corner, suddenly stood up and said, "Let me do it. All of you have special bloodlines as your foundation. Only I am a descendant of the martial god. I don't have a strong bloodline or talent. Instead of remaining unknown, I might as well give it a shot." Lin Tianjiao, once one of the top 4 geniuses of the northern region, could no longer hold back his desire to become stronger. Yifei also understood his feelings. Therefore, although he was a little worried, he still solemnly handed the incomplete Azura blood bead to Lin Tianjiao. "Brother Lin, be careful. If you can't fuse it, don't force it." "I know. I'm just giving it a try." Although he said that, Lin Tianjiao still had a nervous and excited expression on his face when he received the bloodline. The others were both envious and worried at the same time. However, this was Lin Tianjiao's own decision, and no one could interfere. Just like what Lin Tianjiao had said, maybe he would succeed? Seeing that Yifei had finished distributing the bloodline, Di Fan, Zhao Qianjun, and Fu Renjia walked over. "Yifei, the matter in Qingzhou has been settled. We plan to explore that ancient sect again. Do you want to come?" "Of course, but before that, we have something to do." Yifei nodded, then shook his head. The danger in Qingzhou had passed temporarily. As long as the Sword Palace and the Storm Palace were not destroyed, Qingzhou would always be a threat. However, because of the existence of the Storm Palace, the Crimson Lunar Dynasty was not willing to kill the Storm Palace. Therefore, the only target left for revenge was the Sword Palace. It's time to settle the grudges in the Sword Palace. I should also make a trip to the Deity King's Palace. Thinking of this, Yifei felt a little excited. He had promised Zhao Yu that he would flatten the palace of the Divine King and bring Zhao Yu back. Seeing the Yulin Forest guards beginning to gather outside the city, Yifei felt that it was time. "Senior brother Zhao, wait for me in the Imperial City. I'll be right back." After leaving the restaurant, Yifei rushed to the encampment of the Imperial Guards as quickly as he could. He saw that the Quasi-Emperor of Tian Fa and the Supreme Dean were waiting there with Rizu and Pan Wang. The slovenly Taoist was also controlling a newly repaired divine pattern puppet and was talking to Zheng Tai and Rinzu about something. When they saw Yifei, their spirits were lifted. "Yifei, you've come at the right time. We were about to lead the Yulin Forest Guards with Lord Zheng to attack the Sword Palace, but they didn't agree. The slovenly Taoist was very displeased. Zheng Tai and Rinzu, on the other hand, had a stiff expression. We were only following orders to resolve the crisis in Qingzhou. We didn't say that we were going to attack the Sword Palace." Yifei smiled and stopped the slovenly Taoist. "Senior Sword Demon, since they're not willing, why should we force them? At most, I'll go to the Imperial City again. Gongzhu, order all wizards above the Lord of Heaven to follow me. By the order of the Wizard Emperor, all wizards above the Lord of Heaven are to gather here. Don't, young Master Yi. Let's talk things over. There's no need to go to the Imperial City. I'll discuss with the 4 commanders and see if they can make an exception. However, the cost of sending troops this time, Zheng Tai was in a difficult position. After all, opening the Gate of Divine Essences required a lot of Xian veins, not to mention the thousands of Yulin Forest guards. When Yifei heard this, he smiled but didn't say anything. He just glanced at the void in the distance. A large number of Heaven Monarch Sorcerer Tribe members had already received the order and were rushing over from afar. The human ancestor Zheng Tai's eyelids twitched violently. He did not expect that so many grand sorcerers who had already disappeared were hidden in the small Qing province. Although these sorcerers' realms were very weak, as long as he thought about how Ren Xinguang could perform the heaven and earth sacrifice with just his soul, the human ancestor Zhang Tai's eyelids twitched violently. Pass down the order. The army is to move out and attack the Sword Palace immediately. Zhang Tai's face was ashen as he roared at the Yulin Forest Guards. The four commanders looked at each other and said telepathically, "Lord Zhang, His Majesty didn't seem to have such an order." "How can I not know? But since His Majesty is lending troops to Yi Fei, it shows His Majesty's attitude. Besides, we won't lose anything if we destroy the Sword Palace." Zhang Tai sneered. He was the Emperor of the Ancients' trusted aide. How could he not know what the Emperor of the Ancients was planning? Although the ancient Emperor of the Crimson Moon couldn't attack Yi Fei because he had something on Yi Fei, he wouldn't have lent troops to Yi Fei if there were no benefits. Only Zhang Tai knew that the ancient Emperor of the Crimson Moon was lending troops because he was afraid of Yi Fei's ability to summon the earthly Emperor's spirit. Secondly, he wanted to use Yi Fei to weaken the 10 great powers. After all, the Emperor of the Ancients' authority would only be stronger if the 10 great powers were weaker. Moreover, the Sword Palace was the only one among the 10 great powers that had lost a quasi-emperor. Taking this opportunity to destroy, it would only benefit the Crimson Moon Empire. "Yi Fei, have you really decided to destroy the Sword Palace?" The slovenly Taoist had a complicated look in his eyes. His original intention was to use the Yulin Forest Guards to take back control of the Sword Palace. However, Yi Fei had actually destroyed it. "Senior Sword Demon, I know you're upset, but you've seen the current state of the Sword Palace. It's completely rotten from the inside out. Instead of taking back a broken Sword Palace, why don't we demolish the Sword Palace and rebuild it? As the saying goes, there can be no construction without destruction. Only when the Sword Palace is destroyed can it regain its vitality." Yi Fei's expression was resolute. Although the slovenly Taoist was sad, he still sighed and comforted himself when he thought about the disbandment of the Sword Gate and the actions of the Sword Palace. Perhaps Yi Fei is right. The current Sword Palace is no longer the Sword Palace of the past. It really needs to be destroyed and rebuilt. "All Dragonians, follow me." In the end, the slovenly Taoist was still worried. He decided to take the powerful Dragonians and make a trip to the Sword Palace. Yi Fei didn't stop him. He had no choice but to borrow troops from the Crimson Moon Empire. He hadn't forgotten that the 10 great powers of the Divine Prefecture had once joined forces to break into the spiritual realm and destroy the primordial immortal tribe. And the mastermind behind this was very likely the Crimson Moon Empire. Using it now is only for a better revenge in the future. Yi Fei muttered to himself coldly. His words were clearly transmitted by the vegetation beneath his feet. In the deepest part of Tianwu Imperial City, the celestial tree lord's solemn expression turned to one of relief. He didn't say anything else. Instead, he silently retreated into the darkness with the trance behind him. After all the Yulin Forest Guards had entered the gate, Yi Fei once again adjusted the position of the Gate of Immortal Essences. However, this time, Yi Fei aimed at the City of Divine Kings and the Divine King Palace. After 3 years, I can finally return to the City of Divine Kings. Chapter 25:59. Heavenly Messenger. With the end of the Battle of Qingzhou, the defeat of the Sword Palace and the Wind Cloud Palace swept across the entire Divine Land like a hurricane. It also shocked all the forces in the Divine Land. No one had expected that Yi Fei, who was thought to be dead, would suddenly return from the Demon Province. What was even more unexpected was that so many geniuses had gathered in the seemingly small Qingzhou. Of course, the most important thing was that the Red Moon Divine Dynasty had suddenly lent troops to Yi Fei, which made many forces in the Divine Prefecture nervous and suspicious. After all, the current Divine Dynasty only ruled the Divine Prefecture in name, and it had long been divided internally. The so-called top 10 forces were the 10 feudal lords, each ruling a region and enjoying the worship of countless countries. If the ancient emperor of the Crimson Moon had remained inactive, the top 10 forces could still tolerate it. However, the ancient emperor of the Crimson Moon had obviously broken the delicate balance within the divine land. Your Majesty, the master of the Yin Palace, just sent news that the Warlord Palace, the Stormy Palace, and the Nalan family have decided to form an alliance. They have also invited the Royal Soldier Mountain. It is said that the Sword Palace is also interested in joining the alliance. Inside the palace, Rinzu reported with his head lowered. It doesn't matter. Let them form an alliance. As for the Sword Palace, they have lost the Ninth Heaven Swordmaster, a quasi-emperor of Rinzu's supreme realm. Now that the evil Sword Rinzu is dead, the Sword Palace is doomed. Ancient Emperor Crimson Moon sat on the golden and dazzling dragon throne. His face was old, and a heavy aura of death had already emerged from his body. It was obvious that he didn't have much time left. This was also the reason why Ancient Emperor Crimson Moon had repeatedly compromised in the face of the earthly sovereign's heroic spirit. Ancient Emperor Crimson Moon's current state was no longer sufficient for him to face the other ancient emperors, but he was still unwilling to give up. He did not want the power of the divine dynasty to fall into the hands of the top 10 forces, and he did not want to die of old age in the ancient emperor realm. Therefore, he had been plotting. Destroying the heavenly palace of despair was part of his plan. Controlling the Yin Palace was part of his plan. Lending troops to Yi Fei was also part of his plan. Seeing that the Emperor of the Ancients had made up his mind, Rinzu, who was reporting to the Emperor of the Ancients, didn't say anything else. However, he was still a little dissatisfied as he said, "Your Majesty, you have great foresight. However, if we allow Yi Fei to continue growing stronger, even if we take the opportunity to destroy the Sword Palace, we'll only be letting Yi Fei take advantage of us. Ha! Raising a tiger will only invite calamity? Don't worry, that Yi Fei won't become a tiger. He's just a calf that this emperor is using. The more trouble he makes, the faster he'll die. At that time, even the earthly emperor's spirit won't be able to save him. If I'm not wrong, Emperor Sky has already noticed him," Ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon said confidently. Although the ancient emperor was powerful, there were still the ancient gods above him. Emperor Sky was a terrifying existence that was above the divine dynasty. Back then, the earthly emperor had been defeated by Emperor Sky. Ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon didn't believe that Yi Fei would be spared. True strength isn't about how strong one's combat strength is, but how long one can live. The longer one lives, the more hope there is to break through to a higher realm and obtain greater benefits. If I'm not wrong, the Emperor Sky's emissary should be here soon. Boom! Before the ancient Emperor of the Crimson Moon could finish his sentence, a huge space gate appeared above the rolling void. Then, a gorgeous war chariot rushed out from the space gate. A young man in purple armor was driving the war chariot. He crossed the Imperial Palace and landed 10 steps away from the ancient Emperor of the Crimson Moon's throne. Logically speaking, the Divine Dynasty should be furious at such a disrespectful action. However, ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon didn't seem to notice the young man's rudeness. On the contrary, he spoke to the young man as if they were peers. "Welcome, Emperor Sky's emissary. Please forgive me for not going out to meet you. Your Majesty, you're too polite. I'm Lu Mo, a subordinate of the Emperor Sky's elder. Today, I'm here on my master's orders to investigate the revival of the ancient gods' corpse spirits. Do you know who awakened the corpse spirits? Are they the remnants of the immortal spirits?" Lu Mo's tone was cold. Although he was only in the early Rinzu realm, he wasn't afraid of ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon. In fact, he even had a hint of arrogance. This was because he was from the Emperor Sky. To the Emperor Sky, ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon and the entire Scarlet Moon Divine Dynasty were just subordinates. As the saying went, one status determined one status. Ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon naturally wouldn't be angry at Lu Mo's coldness. On the contrary, ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon smiled and pointed at Lu Mo. "Emissary Lu, you shouldn't be asking me these questions. Only Tao lords can enter the land of the ancient god. Even if I wanted to answer, I wouldn't be able to explain it clearly. If I shouldn't be asking you, then who should I be asking? Lu Mo was a little confused. Ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon smiled. Rinzhu, who was beside him, suddenly understood and hurriedly passed Yi Fei's portrait to Lu Mo, the emissary of the Emperor's sky. The portrait was so vivid that even Yi Fei's cultivation level could be seen clearly. Lu Mo couldn't help but show contempt. Early Divine Lord? Who is this person? What's his relationship with the ancient gods' corpse spirits? It's this person who awakened the ancient gods' corpse spirits. Ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon said. Lumo's expression changed. I see. Where is this person now? He's just an ordinary Divine Lord. How could he awaken the ancient gods' corpse spirits? I suspect that this person might be related to the immortal spirits. We must investigate thoroughly. Lord Emissary, according to the latest information we received, Yi Fei has already gone to the palace of the King of Gods. Rinzhu, who was reporting to Lu Mo, saw the hint in ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon's eyes and took out another map. Lu Mo didn't even look at it and shook his head in disdain. I'm not interested in rushing to a small rural place like the Scarlet Moon Dynasty. Do you have a teleportation gate? Mark the location and bring me there immediately. Rinzhu, who was reporting to Lu Mo, had an extremely ugly expression when he heard Lu Mo's words. Ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon, on the other hand, acted as if he didn't hear anything and continued to smile. However, compared to Ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon's shrewdness, Divine King Qiu from the Palace of the King of Gods was a little impatient. Not long ago, Warlord Palace had sent news that the Sword Palace had been destroyed by the Imperial Guards. Sword Guardian Rinzhu had fled with his children, while Divine Sword Niu Hao had led the remaining disciples of the Sword Palace to surrender. They didn't surrender to the Scarlet Moon Dynasty, but to the slovenly Taoists and the Draconians. After the battle in Qingzhou, everyone knew that these Draconians were Yi Fei's subordinates. Now that they had destroyed the Sword Palace, they had the ability to contend with the 10 major forces. Although the Azure Province did not have a quasi-emperor overseeing it, if the Scarlet Moon Deity Dynasty was added in, then no single faction would be able to resist. Palace Lord, what should we do now? If we had known that Yi Mo would be able to come this far and form an alliance with the Divine Dynasty, we wouldn't have sent Zhao Yu to the Imperial Sky so hastily. After all, sending Zhao Yu to the Imperial Sky was both a good and a bad thing. With Zhao Yu's beauty and talent, she would definitely encounter some opportunities in the Imperial Sky. The Palace of the King of Gods would also be rewarded by the Imperial Sky. However, this would also offend Yi Fei. Chapter 2560. Family Jiwang, the deathmatch arena, was bustling with people as usual. Shouts of battle could be heard everywhere. Countless warriors squandered money like it was water or fought with their lives on the line. The entire city of Divine Kings was not affected by the Battle of Qingzhou and the destruction of Sword Palace. Only the upper echelons of the deathmatch arena knew how great of an impact the Battle of Qingzhou had on the entire Divine Prefecture. In particular, Yi Fei had detained the two Rinzhu, Hua Li and Quang Zhan, seized the Gate of Immortal Essences, and killed Jiang Hui. This had caused the entire Deathmatch Palace to stand against Yi Fei, even though the Deathmatch Palace had not formed an alliance with Battle King Palace. However, there was no doubt that Yi Fei's entrance had caused the warriors in the Deathmatch arena to become nervous and alert. The entire clamorous life and death arena became absolutely silent following Yi Fei's appearance. Many warriors who knew Yi Fei could not help but widen their eyes in shock. Once upon a time, Yi Fei was just a small warrior from Qingzhou who had come to the city of Divine Kings to train. He did not have the strength nor the backing. Without the enmity between Xue Tu and Li Moran, Yi Fei would not have been able to walk out of the city of Divine Kings alive. At that time, many people thought that Yi Fei might not be able to set foot in the city of Divine Kings for the rest of his life after offending the Palace of Divine Kings. However, in the short 3 years that followed, Yi Fei single-handedly swept the Earth Carnage role and became a champion. He even awakened the ancient god corpse spirit and created havoc in Crimson Moon's imperial city. After the Battle of Demonic Mountain, just as everyone thought that the demon of this generation had finally fallen, Yi Fei fought a great battle in Qingzhou and destroyed Sword Palace. He truly showed the world the greatness of this generation's demon. Now, Yi Fei had returned. He had returned to the city of divine kings that he had once left helplessly. He had returned to the city of divine kings that he had once been in a sorry state. However, everyone no longer looked at Yi Fei with contempt and disdain. Only glory and honor remained. City of God Kings, here I come. Yi Fei stood outside the deathmatch arena in the city of divine monarchs and bowed deeply in the direction of Shui Tuesday, Senior Shui Tu. I've also brought Ji Feng back. He didn't go to the Divine King Palace immediately after entering the city of divine kings. Instead, he went to the arena of life and death. He didn't forget his promise with Shui Tuesday. When his bloodline reached grade 10, he would use his own bloodline to improve Mad Dog's bloodline and eliminate the flaws in Mad Dog's bloodline. Now that Mad Dog's bloodline defect had been eliminated, Yi Fei would naturally bring Mad Dog to the deathmatch arena and hand him over to Shui Tuesday. To Mad Dog, Shui Tu was not only his master, but also his benefactor who raised him. Master, Mad Dog is back. Seeing Yi Fei bowing, Mad Dog immediately knelt down and looked at Shui Tu excitedly. Shui Tu also looked at Mad Dog excitedly. Good. Yi Fei, Mad Dog, didn't let me down. I'm very pleased with your achievements. However, you shouldn't have come to the city of divine monarchs, and you shouldn't have come to see me. You came at the wrong time. Shui Tu sighed. Yi Fei and Mad Dog raised their heads at the same time and looked at Shui Tu in confusion. They saw 3 middle-aged men coming out from behind Shui Tuesday. These 3 men all had powerful auras. They were Rinzhu. Moreover, these 3 Rinzhu all had 3 strange symbols on their foreheads. Seeing those symbols, Mad Dog's heart skipped a beat. He instinctively touched his own forehead. In Qingzhou, Yi Fei had used his own bloodline to repair Mad Dog's bloodline flaw. After Mad Dog's bloodline was repaired, a crescent symbol also appeared on his forehead. The 3 middle-aged men also looked at Mad Dog's forehead. Shui Tu, is this the abandoned infant you took from my clan? Mad Dog's background was very rough. He came from a powerful ancient clan, but because of his bloodline flaw, the ancient clan didn't tolerate him and almost killed him. It was Shui Tu who happened to pass by, saved Mad Dog, and raised Mad Dog. Now, 3 Rinzhu with the same aura as Mad Dog had appeared. It wasn't difficult for Yi Fei to figure out what Shui Tu's sign meant. Obviously, these 3 people were from that powerful ancient clan. Seniors, this is the child I took away back then. However, the flaw in his bloodline has been repaired. Seniors, please don't make things difficult for him for my sake, Shui Tu said worriedly. Hearing this, the 3 middle-aged men sneered. Make things difficult for him? Master Shui Tu, I'm afraid you've misunderstood. This time, we're not making things difficult for him. We're here to take him back. Remember, from now on, you're no longer Mad Dog, but a member of the Noble Moon Clan. Also, from now on, you're not allowed to kneel to anyone except the ancient gods. Get up. Boom. The ground shook violently. It was just a simple sound, but it caused the ground to rumble. Mad Dog was forcefully shaken off the ground and flew directly toward one of the middle-aged men. Divine Ghost Cauldron, suppress them. Yi Fei saw that the situation wasn't good. He immediately controlled the Divine Ghost Cauldron to block the Rinzhu's power. Suddenly, a strong divine light appeared on the forehead of one of the Rinzhu. It was an extremely terrifying light of death. This light penetrated the Divine Ghost Cauldron and almost hit Yi Fei. Yi Fei was shocked. Ever since he became a monarch god, the Divine Ghost Cauldron had always been effective against Rinzhu. However, against these people, it seemed to have lost its effect. Mad Dog finally recovered from his shock, and he instantly entered a state of frenzy. He immediately activated his Berserk Demon technique, causing the moon on his forehead to shine brightly as it actually unleashed a terrifying wave of deathly light that blasted towards the human ancestor. With a loud boom, The middle-aged Rinzhu was forced back by Mad Dog's divine light. The middle-aged Rinzhu was furious and was about to attack. The other two Rinzhu pulled him back and said, "Times have changed. He's still a descendant of the Ji family. Back then, we misjudged his bloodline. We can't let it go again." After persuading him, they looked at Mad Dog and said, "Ji Feng, we won't hurt you. On the contrary, we're here on orders to bring you back to the family to enjoy life. You may not know this, but your great-grandfather has become an ancient emperor and is only one step away from becoming a god. When you return to the family, your status will definitely be 100 times, no, 1,000 times better than here. In the end, the Crimson Lunar Dynasty is still too small for you. Only when you return to the family Jiwang with us can you become a true dragon and soar to the sky." It was obvious that the two middle-aged Rinzhu valued Mad Dog very much and had no intention of harming Mad Dog. Yi Fei put down the divine ghost cauldron and looked at Rinzhu behind him. This time, he didn't come to the palace of the divine king alone. Rinzhu was behind him, and he also had the celestial essence gate. He could open the realm gate at any time and summon the Yulin royal guards. This was why Yi Fei had the confidence to enter the city of the divine king. Chapter 25:61. Looking down from above, I can't tell. But to be so arrogant, they must be existences from the 9 great regions. Rinzhu said in a deep voice. The size of the heaven realm was unimaginable. It was divided into 9 great regions, and each great region was a different world. For example, it was said that after breaking through to the half-ancestor realm, Feng Yun had already left this heaven realm and entered another heaven realm to train and cultivate. This was also the reason why Feng Yun did not appear in the battle between the Earth Carnage Roll and Qing Province. The 3 middle-aged men looked at the lightning ancestor in surprise. "You seem to know a lot. Since you know about the 9 domains, then you should know that with our strength, if we have any malicious intent, no one in the entire death match will be able to survive. However, we are not here to kill people this time. We are here on the orders of the sect elder to welcome Ji Feng and acknowledge his ancestors. Ji Feng, it was our clan's fault in the past for hurting your parents. However, the branch that hurt you has already been killed by your great-grandfather. Now, once you return to the clan, you'll be treated as a direct descendant's young master." A middle-aged Rinzhu said politely to Mad Dog. Shuetu also secretly nodded to Mad Dog, indicating that these people were not lying. If these people had any ill intentions, Shuetu would have already taken action and not just sighed. This sigh was more of reluctance, and also Yi Fei, a trace of guilt. After all, when he sent Mad Dog away, Shuetu had made Mad Dog swear that he would follow Yi Fei in the future. Now, he was going to break his promise. "Yi Fei, I'm sorry." Shuetu's eyes were filled with guilt. "It's okay." Yi Fei shook his head with a smile. He had never treated Mad Dog as a subordinate, but as a brother. Now that Mad Dog had obtained an opportunity and had a powerful backer behind him, he would only be happy for Mad Dog. "Sorry, I can't go with you. Back then, I swore that I would follow Yi Fei. Since I said it, I will do it." Mad Dog's expression was stubborn. The 3 middle-aged Rinzhu were furious. "What nonsense are you talking about? The Ji family is a well-known ancient family in the 9 zones. Only the ancient gods are qualified for you to follow. Who is this person? He actually dares to make our ancient clan direct descendants follow him." Boom! The 3 middle-aged Rinzhu were filled with anger and killing intent. Yi Fei's expression turned cold when he sensed the killing intent, just as he was contemplating whether or not he should harden his heart and fight it out with this ancient race or not. Mad Dog suddenly stepped in front of Yi Fei, blocking the way. His voice was filled with the desire to do battle. "You abandoned me all those years ago. Don't even think about me returning. I said that I would follow Yi Fei, and I will follow him to the end." The 3 middle-aged Rinzhu looked at each other in dismay. They had not expected Mad Dog to be so stubborn. Just as the 3 of them were at a loss for what to do, far away in the void, within a divine palace, a tyrannical divine sense suddenly appeared. This divine sense swept out in all directions, and at this moment, its gaze also landed on Yi Fei. Emissary of Lu Mo, the person you're looking for has been found. He is currently in the arena of life and death. A dignified voice sounded from the void. Then, the terrifying aura of a quasi-emperor suppressed the area and frightened the martial artists in the arena of death. The divine lordly Moran looked down and shouted coldly, "The palace of the divine king is handling matters. Those who are not involved should leave." In an instant, all the martial artists in the arena of death had left. No one dared to offend the palace of the divine king. Moreover, the divine lord and Renzu were not the only ones who had appeared in the void. There were even quasi-emperors. When Xiuyun Renzu saw Yi Fei, anger flashed across her eyes. If not for this person, there would not have been a crack in her relationship with Zhao Yu, and she would have been forced to send Zhao Yu to Imperial Sky. Now that she saw Yi Fei again, Xiuyun Renzu was furious. "Elder brother, this is Yi Fei. It's this evil spirit who harmed my most beloved disciple. Old witch, shut your mouth. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. Call Zhao Yu out." Yi Fei was furious when he saw Xiuyun Renzu. If not for Xiuyun Renzu, he would have taken Zhao Yu away long ago. He would not have waited until now to come to the palace of the divine king to take Zhao Yu away. However, Yi Fei did not know that Zhao Yu had already been sent to Imperial Sky. Xiuyun Renzu and divine King Xiu sneered at the same time and refused to tell Yi Fei where Zhao Yu was. They looked at the three middle-aged Renzu in surprise. "We all know Renzu from the divine prefecture. Where are the three of you from?" After all, Yi Fei had borrowed troops from the divine dynasty to destroy the Sword Palace. Divine King Xiu could not help but be more cautious. He was worried that this was a trap set by the Crimson Moon divine dynasty. "Renzu from a small place like you don't need to know our identities. We're talking about the juniors over there. Are you from Imperial Sky?" The three middle-aged Renzu did not even look at divine King Xiu, a quasi-emperor. It was as if they were used to it. However, they looked at Lu Mo in a different light. Yi Fei was a little displeased by their tone. Divine King Xiu and Xiuyun Renzu's faces turned red and were about to explode. However, Lu Mo's attitude shocked them. Lu Mo, who had been very cold along the way, was very polite to the three of them. "So you're from the family Jiwang. What a rare guest. What wind blew you to the small Crimson Moon divine dynasty?" "It's nothing. We have a clansman who is stranded outside. We were ordered to bring him back. May I know why Imperial Sky is here?" One of the middle-aged Renzu asked. Lu Mo's expression changed. He was no longer polite. Instead, he looked at Yi Fei coldly. "Are you the demon Yi who has been causing a lot of trouble recently? Do you know that the Crimson Moon divine dynasty is a subordinate of Imperial Sky? By stirring up trouble here, you are disrespecting my Emperor Sky." "What? Imperial Sky?" Lu Mo's words made Rizu's expression change. "Yi Fei, this is bad. When did you offend Imperial Sky?" Yi Fei did not say anything. Just from Rizu's attitude, he knew how powerful Imperial Sky was. Even the Crimson Moon divine dynasty was a subordinate of Imperial Sky. When Lu Mo asked this question, a pair of eyes in the crowd stared at Yi Fei as if they wanted to see a trace of fear or dread on Yi Fei's face. However, this pair of eyes was disappointed to see that Yi Fei's expression did not change at all when he heard the name of Imperial Sky. He was very calm. Only Xiao Chao and the dragon turtle knew that Yi Fei's hair stood on end when he heard the name of Imperial Sky. After all, the earthly emperor had been defeated by the ancient gods of Imperial Sky. The earthly emperor's greatest wish had been for Yi Fei to inherit his will and slay Imperial Sky on his behalf. In the past, Yi Fei did not know what kind of power Imperial Sky was or where it was located. It was only when he saw Lu Mo and divine King Qiu's cautious attitude toward Lu Mo that he realized that the true Imperial Sky might be even more powerful than he had imagined. Chapter 2562. To be buried with the Ra dynasty, the appearance of the Imperial Sky emissary was specifically targeting Yi Fei. This made the eyes of the three family Jiwang Rinzhu brightened. As Ji Feng's current status was no longer the same as before, they could not use force against Yi Fei. However, if Yi Fei provoked the Imperial Sky Emissary and Yi Fei was eliminated, it would naturally have nothing to do with them. Hence, the three family Jiwangs, Rinzhu sneered. They wanted to see how Yi Fei's legs would turn to jelly in the face of the powerful Emperor Sky. But just like the owner of those eyes, they were all disappointed. Yi Fei acted as if he didn't hear or see Huang Tian. He ignored Lu Mo and looked at Li Moran. You participated in the Battle of the Azure Province and killed many soldiers. You escaped from the Azure Province. Now that we're in the City of Divine Kings, let's see how you escape. Balspawn, what did you say? It's not enough that you hurt my son, and now you dare to threaten me? Li Moran flew into a rage. The one thing he regretted the most was not killing Yi Fei in the City of Divine Kings, which allowed Yi Fei to grow into such a person. Now, not only had the junior that he had once looked down on grown up, he even possessed the power to threaten him in the God King's palace. Li Moran was so furious that his face paled. His body trembled. Qiu Yin Rinzhu wanted to slap Yi Fei to death, but God King Qiu stopped her in time. He shook his head and said, "This brat is too arrogant. It's fine if he looks down on God King Palace, but what's worse is that he dares to look down on Emperor Sky." After saying that, Divine King Qiu glanced at Lu Mo. Lu Mo's expression was extremely ugly. A faint killing intent appeared on his body. "Do you know what kind of crime it is to look down on my Emperor Heaven? Do you know how tragic your fate will be if you anger me?" Dong! Lu Mo had already taken 2 steps forward. He was only at the initial stage of Rinzhu, but the aura he exuded was even more terrifying than many middle-stage Rinzhu. Yi Fei even had a vague feeling that he was facing Feng Yun. He did not know where this feeling came from, but Lu Mo's strength and talent were definitely not below Feng Yun's. However, Yi Fei was not afraid because of this, as Xiao Chao had already sensed that the Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor was hiding in the crowd. Although he didn't know why the Imperial Sky Lu Mo had come, Yi Fei knew that Lu Mo's appearance was definitely related to the Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor's probing. Since that was the case, what was there to be afraid of? Yi Fei ignored Lu Mo's threats once again. Instead of retreating, he took 2 steps forward coldly towards Qiuyan Rinzhu. "I have only come for one thing. Old witch, where did you hide Zhao Yu? Today, I will take her away. Otherwise, I will flatten your palace." Boom! His last words were like a clap of thunder that exploded in the sky above the City of Gods. He had once been forced to leave the City of Gods and had not been able to take Zhao Yu away. This had left him with regrets. Today he had to make up for this regret and take Zhao Yu away from the Palace of Gods. Haha, take Zhao Yu away? You little devil with the surname Yi, you're really delusional. You're a toad that wants to eat swan meat. Yu Er's heavenly beauty is rare in the world. If one wants to become her man, then one must be the strongest existence in this world. Who do you think you are? With your little talent, you can't even compare to Feng Yun, let alone young master Lu Mo of Emperor Sky. Qiuyan Rinzhu sneered. She was serious and rigid. Yi Fei did not respect the Palace of Gods and was known as a devil. He was the one that Qiuyan Rinzhu disliked the most. Hearing Zhao Yu's name, Lu Mo, who was standing beside him, suddenly felt that the name sounded familiar. Then, he suddenly remembered that a beautiful woman had appeared in Emperor Sky recently. She seemed to have come from a Scarlet Moon divine dynasty. Although he had only seen her once, Lu Mo's heart was already pounding. He had never expected that such a woman would come from the palace of the Scarlet Moon Divine Dynasty's Palace of Gods. Lu Mo instantly had an idea. He looked at Divine King Qiuyun and said, "I never expected that the Palace of Gods would have such a beautiful woman. I wonder if Divine King can make the decision for me to marry this woman? Haha, if young Master Lu is interested, I am willing to be the matchmaker." Divine King Qiuyun laughed heartily. His words had completely disregarded Yi Fei. He wished that he could curry favor with Lu Mo immediately. Although Yi Fei knew that Divine King Qiuyun was doing this on purpose to infuriate him, he still could not tolerate the humiliation of treating Zhao Yu like a tool. After all, Zhao Yu was his woman. She was the person he loved the most. If he did not fight when the person he loved was being humiliated, he was not a man. Fight! Yi Fei's body was burning with the flames of war. His eyes were as sharp as swords. Suddenly, the inextinguishable sword token turned into a black golden divine sword and fell into Yi Fei's hand. He pointed it at Lu Mo and divine King Chuyun. Palace of Gods, if you have any problems, come at me. If you dare to harm Zhao Yu, I, Yi Fei, swear that I will destroy the Palace of Gods and shatter Emperor Sky. You have heard what this vile creature said. Since he dared to say such arrogant words, I have no choice but to kill him. Divine King Chuyun was waiting for these words. As long as Yi Fei said these words, he would have a reason to attack, and he would not be afraid that the divine dynasty would use this as an excuse to attack the Palace of Gods. Lu Mo walked out from the side and said coldly to divine King Chuyun, "There is no need to use a sledgehammer to kill a chicken. I wanted to capture him and bring him back to Emperor Sky. Since he doesn't know what's good for him, it's the same to kill him and bring his corpse back." Lu Mo was already interested in Zhao Yu. Now that he found out that Yi Fei and Zhao Yu were in a relationship, how could Lu Mo tolerate this? Killing intent immediately emerged in his heart. The terrifying might of Renzu surged towards Yi Fei. Rizu, who was standing behind divine King Chuyun, became nervous. Without asking for Yi Fei's permission, he opened the gate of divine essences in an attempt to get the divine dynasty's Yulin royal guards to help him. However, other than the slovenly Taoist who came with his divine rune puppet, no divine emperor Renzu walked out from the gate of divine essences. Rizu's expression changed drastically. He cried out, "Where are the Yulin royal guards? They left. They left me here alone." The slovenly Taoist's four faces were extremely ugly. When he saw divine King Chuyun and Lu Mo, who revealed his killing intent, the slovenly Taoist's expression changed drastically. Emperor Sky and the family Jiwang of the Nine Domains. Seeing that Yi Fei had not only provoked the Emperor of the Ancients, but also the Emperor Sky, the slovenly Taoist's four faces became even more bitter and ugly. With such a lineup, even the Crimson Moon Divine Dynasty can't stop them, let alone Qingzhou. Yi Fei, hurry up and leave. We'll cover your retreat. Facing the Emperor Sky and losing the support of the Divine Dynasty, Qingzhou had no chance of winning no matter how strong their potential was. Instantly, the slovenly Taoist made up his mind. He would protect Yi Fei and leave safely, regardless of his life. Chapter 2563. Imperial Astral Winds Boom. As he spoke, the portal behind Yi Fei opened again. However, it was not the Divine Dynasty's reinforcements who walked out this time. Instead, it was Gong Zhu and a large group of sorcerers whose cultivation levels were higher than the Lord of Heavens. The sorcerer tribe was the descendant of the Grand Sorcerer. They were born with the ability to sacrifice themselves to the heavens and earth. However, they would not be able to obtain the secret technique to summon heroic spirits like the deities. However, Yi Fei and Gong Zhu were clear about this. Ancient Emperor Qiyu, Lu Mo, and Divine King Xiu were not clear about this either. At this moment, Yi Fei was gambling. He was gambling that the ancient Emperor of the Crimson Moon was afraid of death. He was gambling that the ancient Emperor of the Crimson Moon would definitely not allow him to perform the heaven and earth sacrifice and summon the spirit of the earthly emperor. After all, once the earthly sovereign's heroic spirit appeared, with the earthly sovereign's strength and resentment towards the imperial sky, if he discovered the people of the imperial sky, he would fight to the death without any hesitation. Since Yi Fei had already scared the Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor once, he did not mind scaring him a second time. Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor, since you lied to me, I will drag this Lu Mo and the entire Scarlet Moon Deity dynasty down with me. Yi Fei roared and pointed his divine sword at the sky. All the sorcerers had already ignited their sorcerer bloodline and chanted ancient incantations. Hearing those incantations, Lu Mo's face suddenly changed. Now, there are actually so many descendants of the Grand Shaman. Not good. Could it be that they are sacrificing the heavens and earth to summon those ancient heroic spirits that died in battle? Quick, God King Autumn, I order you to kill all these magi. Lumo's expression turned grave. He came from the imperial sky and naturally knew some rumors about the Grand Shaman in the primordial age. It was said that the Grand Shaman's dark force was weak, but his soul was extremely strong. He could develop a strong divine will in advance and communicate with the heavens and earth to borrow the power of the great Tao. However, the Grand Shaman had to pay a huge price for each sacrifice. He might even sacrifice his own life. As time passed, very few people were willing to cultivate the Grand Shaman. However, the Grand Shaman's life of the world was Great Art Studio World was a divine king studio world studio. Although Divine King Autumn did not know this, he was Divine King Autumn. Divine was Autumn. Divine King Xiao was studio. Divine King Autumn was Divine King Autumn was Divine King Xiao was Autumn. He was Divine King Xiao studio, B was studio. Divine King Xiao was a divine god. God Studio was studio divine god. Studio was studio realm divine, divine death, divine, dragon, Qiu studio of divine studio were divine. At this moment, Zhu Gong and the other sorcerers became extremely nervous. Some of the sorcerers were so nervous that they chanted incantations incorrectly. Only Yifei was calm and determined. He walked up the imperial sky altar that Zhu Gong and the others had created. It was as if he was going to sacrifice himself and the heavens and earth to summon the earthly emperor's heroic spirit again. Of course, Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle clearly saw that Yifei's calf was cramping. After all, only Yifei knew that the earthly emperor's heroic spirit had been destroyed. He could not summon it again, even if he sacrificed all his essence blood. Scarlet Moon, ancient emperor, you must be afraid of death. If you're not afraid of death, I'll die this time. They had already walked up the altar, but the Scarlet Moon, ancient emperor, still did not attack. Instead, Xiao Shenhuang's attack was coming. Xiao Qiao and the dragon turtle's hair stood on end. However, Xiao Qiao still remembered Yifei's order. The moment Yifei stepped onto the altar, he endured the pain and released the immortal blood and demon dragon blood together with the dragon turtle. Yifei also made up his mind. He suddenly pulled out his sword and was about to cut his finger to release the earthly emperor's bloodline. It was also enough to show his determination to drag the Scarlet Moon holy dynasty down with him. The Scarlet Moon, ancient emperor, who was hiding in the crowd, could no longer sit still. Almost at the moment when Yifei was about to cut his finger, a thunderous roar resounded through the sky. Then, a palm landed on Xiao Shenhuang's back. Xiao Shenhuang, who was caught off guard, immediately let out a sullen and angry roar. His entire body was uncontrollably slammed onto the ground. Who dares to go against the palace of the Divine King? Xiao Shenhuang was the palace lord of the Divine King after all. Even though he was attacked from behind by a quasi-emperor, he was still able to unleash an extremely strong battle strength and reaction time. He instantly got up from the ground and furiously fought with the quasi-emperor in the sky. How dare you? Assist the palace lord and kill this person. Qiu Yinrenzhu was not willing to let Yifei go. She was determined to get rid of Yifei, this scourge. She would also completely break Zhao Yu's heart. Qiu Yinrenzhu was not the only one. The other Renzu from the palace of the Divine King also attacked, wanting to kill Yifei. Rizhu and the slovenly Taoist felt their hair stand on end. However, they soon saw many masked and powerful Renzu rushing out from the crowd. These Renzu unleashed their terrifying cultivation. Just like the masked quasi-emperor, they blocked the path of the palace of the Divine King and engaged in a fierce battle. Squeak! Xiao Qiao suddenly discovered something and pointed at the quasi-emperor. The dragon turtle quickly raised a small wooden tablet. It's Yang Ding Tian, the palace lord of the Yin-Yang Palace. Yifei was extremely shocked. He summoned the shamans and sacrificed the heavens and earth to force the ancient emperor of the Scarlet Moon to protect him. However, Instead of forcing the ancient emperor of the Scarlet Moon to come out, he forced the people of the Yin-Yang Palace to come out and stand on his side. This brat is just like the earthly emperor. Both of them are jinxes. He wants to use the heavens and earth as a sacrifice to force me to show myself. He's too naive. The ancient emperor of the Scarlet Moon sneered in the crowd. However, Yifei's acting was too realistic. He accidentally cut his finger and a trace of blood flowed out. The ancient emperor of the Scarlet Moon was still frightened and cursed in his heart. He was an ancient emperor, but Yifei had his Achilles heel and threatened him with the spirit of the earthly emperor. This made the ancient emperor of the Scarlet Moon feel very embarrassed. Therefore, the ancient emperor of the Scarlet Moon only sent his illegitimate son, Yang Dingtian, to lead the experts of the Yin-Yang Palace to stop the palace of the Divine King. He did not stop Lu Mo, the heavenly emissary. Seeing that Yifei had so many mysterious Rinzhu quasi-emperors helping him, Lu Mo's face was filled with rage. I don't believe that you would dare to sacrifice yourself to summon the battle spirit of an ancient expert. Die. Boom. The void trembled. A huge divine spear appeared in Lu Mo's hand. This spear pierced through the heavens and earth and stabbed towards Yifei. Under the light of the spear, the heaven and earth altar summoned by Gong Zhu and the others began to collapse. Retreat. At Yifei's command, all the sorcerers quickly retreated and stood behind the slovenly Taoist. Yifei and the lightning ancestor roared at the same time. The lightning ancestor suddenly transformed into a gigantic lightning beast with rolling thunder. The ancestral weapon of the human race, with lightning that streaked across the sky, clashed with the divine spear in Lu Mo's hand. However, Lu Mo's divine spear was too powerful. After several explosions, the divine spear in his hand pierced through Rizu's Rinzhu weapon. In the end, the divine spear even tried to pierce Rizu's body and kill Rizu on the spot. Rizu let out a furious roar. The destruction of his weapon, which had been in battle for thousands of years, undoubtedly caused Rizu to go berserk. He began his most primitive and terrifying attack. He used the sharp claws on his body, the beast tooth in his mouth, and the lightning for all over his body to fight Lu Mo. Chapter 2564. Limaran's Death Boom. Lu Mo released a terrifying aura. That aura was similar to Yi Fei's ancient god golden body. It also contained a wisp of the ancient god's aura. This aura instantly made Lu Mo's attack even more terrifying. The Imperial Celestial Dipper art wasn't an immemorial divine art that the various factions of the Crimson Moon Holy Dynasty were fighting over. It was a complete ancient god art. Anyone who cultivated this art could become a god. When Lu Mo executed this art, the entire world became resplendent. Behind Lu Mo, a strong Imperial Celestial Dipper Di-ing appeared. The shadowy figure also wielded a divine spear and charged toward the lightning ancestor. Kill. Ghost god suppressing heaven and earth. The gate of hell opened, and the 9 underworlds emerged. Yifei stood on the cauldron of souls, and his body was like the gate of hell. He controlled the cauldron of ghosts and deities and rushed over from afar, smashing toward Lu Mo. Lu Mo was not afraid. A bunch of ants. If I don't use my full strength, how would you know that my Imperial Celestial Dipper art doesn't surpass the 9 heavens? How would you know the vastness of the world, the number of geniuses? Boom! The divine spear in his hand stabbed at Rizu. The Di-ing behind him also followed Lu Mo's actions and stabbed Yifei with his spear. Yifei's expression changed when he saw this double spear move. He realized that he couldn't find any flaws in this spear move. He had no choice but to face it head-on. Lu Mo was at the initial stage of Rinzhu. His bloodline talent wasn't inferior to Feng Yan's. If they fought head-on, Yifei, who was at the initial stage of the Divine Lord realm, would undoubtedly be at a disadvantage. As for the lightning ancestor, he was even more direct. Under the attack of Lu Mo's divine spear, lightning exploded and his hair was pulverized. If it weren't for the fact that the lightning ancestor was a lightning beast and could transform his true body into lightning, allowing him to evade the spear light in time, it was very likely that the spear strike would have seriously injured him. In fact, he might even have been captured and turned into a mount. Rizu became more and more furious. Rinzu's temper as a vicious beast was completely ignited. He ignored everything and attacked Luemo crazily. However, Luemo didn't even look at him. His figure disappeared from Rizu's sight and reappeared in front of Yi Fei. It's said that there's a Feng Yun in the Divine Prefecture with amazing talent. Even the elders of the Imperial Sky praised him. However, that Feng Yun is just an ordinary person in the Imperial Sky. You're even worse than that Feng Yun because you can't even enter the Imperial Sky. You'll only be a dead man. Once you're dead, I'll take good care of Zhao Yu in the Imperial Sky. Boom! The deadly spear light with Di Ying's indifference landed on Yi Fei's body. However, Yi Fei turned a deaf ear to it. He was still shocked by Lu Mo's words. Zhao Yu is no longer in the Divine King's palace and has been sent to the Imperial Sky. That's right, Zhao Yu has been sent to the Imperial Sky. Seeing Yi Fei being swallowed by the endless spear light, Li Moran walked over with a disdainful expression. He was like a high and mighty divine king. Yi Fei, I admit that I've underestimated you. You're not a salted fish, you're a dragon. However, it's a pity that a dragon like you has met the true dragon of the Imperial Sky. You'll be trampled to death, and you'll never be able to make a comeback. In the end, you won't even be able to protect the woman you love. You can only watch as she enters the Imperial Sky. From then on, you'll be separated forever. Lumo's spear light became more and more intense. It was as if it was going to destroy Yi Fei's body and the world Yi Fei was in. However, upon hearing Li Moran's words, the blazing spear light suddenly flashed. A terrifying sword light split the spear light apart and shattered Di Ying. Soon, it appeared in front of Li Moran. How is this possible? The proud Li Moran couldn't believe that Yi Fei was able to survive the attack of a powerful young man like Lu Mo. Not only did he not die, but he was also able to unleash such a terrifying sword light. This sword light directly shattered his protective, dark energy. Then, Li Moran felt a sharp pain in his forehead. The sword light had actually pierced through his glabella and exited from the back of his head. Until his death, Li Moran couldn't believe that the young man he had once despised, ignored, and humiliated would grow to such a terrifying extent in just a few years. He was actually able to kill him in an instant with a single sword light. Father. Seeing this scene, Xue Qinxiu was so scared that his gallbladder was about to shatter. He had come over to see how Yi Fei would die, but in the end, he saw Li Moran being killed in an instant. Delightful. With this sword light, I, Xue too, can die with no regrets. Seeing his enemy being killed by Yi Fei with his own eyes, Xue Tu's heart was in turmoil. He had endured in the Deathmatch Palace for many years, but he had always been restrained by the Deathmatch Palace. He couldn't attack Li Moran and start a war between the two palaces. Until now, when he saw Yi Fei's decisive sword light, Xue Tu suddenly felt that his years of enduring were a complete joke. The Deathmatch Palace wasn't his place of residence. Rip! Xue Tu was enraged. He tore off the Arena Master's uniform and changed into a scarlet blood-red robe. From now on, he was no longer the Arena Master of the Arena of Life and Death, but the godly King Xue Tu who repaid his debts. Noticing Xue Tu's actions, Mad Dog's expression changed. He felt helpless because he was being watched by Rinzu from the family Zhuang. It was difficult for him to even talk to Xue Tu, let alone help Yi Fei. Mad Dog was instantly enraged. Get out of the way. If Yi Fei wants to fight, I'll fight. Ji Feng, how many times do you want us to say this? Among the descendants of the family Zhuang, only the ancient gods are worthy of following. Moreover, Yi Fei has offended Imperial Sky Lu Mo, so he will definitely die today. What's the point of you going up there? A middle-aged Rinzu flew into a rage and pulled Mad Dog away, wanting to leave this place. Even though they were Rinzu, they still felt that it was extremely dangerous in the face of a quasi-emperor battle and the chaos in the Divine King's palace. They had to bring Mad Dog back. However, Mad Dog was stubborn. Before the three Renzu could get close, Mad Dog had already made a Mad Dog move. He raised his saber and dug into his own forehead. I don't want anything from the family Jiwang. I'm not Ji Feng. I'm Mad Dog. I'm the Mad Dog who swore to follow Yi Fei for the rest of my life. Shut up, you're not Mad Dog. You're a direct descendant of our family Jiwang, and your great-grandfather is a powerful ancient god. If you follow a puny divine lord, won't you be bringing shame to our family Jiwang? Stop talking nonsense. Capture him and report back to the clan. The last Renzu could no longer hold himself back. He wanted to capture Mad Dog and leave this place as soon as possible. At this moment, the battle in the sky had reached its most intense stage. The two quasi-emperors, Divine King Qiu and Yang Dingtian, fought fiercely. Half of the deathmatch arena had been destroyed by the quasi-emperor's attacks. However, the most eye-catching battle was the one between Yi Fei and Lu Mo. Lu Mo's emperor's celestial dipper failed to kill Yi Fei. Instead, Yi Fei used the golden body of the ancient god to block it. Then, Yi Fei used the illusion that Lu Mo had killed him to lure Li Moran forward and kill Li Moran with a single strike. This was like a resounding slap to Lu Mo's face. Damn it, you've cultivated the golden body of the ancient god. How dare you kill someone in front of me? You've thoroughly angered me. Chapter 2565. Heavenly Judgment. The Heavenly Emperor's aura made it seem as though the heavens and earth were about to collapse. Lu Mo was standing in the middle of the collapsing heavens and earth. The divine spear in his hand shone brighter and brighter. It was as though an ancient god-emperor had descended upon the world. In the name of the Heavenly Emperor, I grant you judgment. Lu Mo's voice rumbled like a deity's voice. Even the Renzu who were fighting felt the suppression of the Heavenly Emperor and stopped fighting. They lifted their heads and looked at the collapsing sky. It wasn't Lu Mo himself that caused the sky to collapse. It was the divine spear in Lu Mo's hand that was releasing a terrifying light. This light was the Imperial Sky's unique Imperial Celestial Handle. However, it was different from the Imperial Celestial Handle that Lu Mo had released before. This time, the Imperial Celestial Handle that Lu Mo released was stronger and more terrifying. Boom! Before the divine spear pierced out, the void around the heavens and earth had already collapsed. All the martialists who saw this were shocked. The ancient Emperor of Scarlet Moon's expression suddenly became fanatical. As expected, this lad from the Heavenly Emperor has indeed learned the most complete ancient god cultivation technique of the Heavenly Emperor, the Supreme Emperor Scripture. This cultivation technique had already surpassed the primordial mystiques of the various factions in the Scarlet Moon Holy Dynasty. It was a great void mystique. This kind of mystique usually contained the cultivation technique to break through to the ancient god realm. It was also the cultivation technique that the ancient Emperor of Scarlet Moon dreamed of. Unfortunately, this cultivation technique was only in the hands of the Heavenly Emperor. If one didn't enter the Heavenly Emperor realm, they wouldn't be able to obtain it. This was the reason why the Heavenly Emperor was above the Divine Continent. Kill. Under everyone's gazes, the terrifying light from the spear had already descended. It turned into a terrifying imperial aurora that tore apart the sky and the earth. Yi Fei's eyes flashed with intense solemnity and the aura of death as he directly faced the light from the spear. If I can't block this attack, I will definitely die. But I will definitely block it. This was Yi Fei's confidence in his own strength, Ghost Cauldron, and ancient god golden body. He roared like an ancient god. His dazzling, golden body turned into a peculiar purple-gold Taiji diagram that enveloped him. Boom! Boom! Lu Mo's Taiji's Taiji light. The Taiji's, but the difference in cultivation realm. The Taiji's and Lu. The Heavenly Emperor's Heavenly Emperor was Taiji, Emperor Lu Lin. Lu Lin Lu Luo's Taiji. 9 Underworld, Qi suddenly. Yi Lin as Luan, as God's Lin. Lufun, God suddenly of 99 Taiji Studios of 99, Nylon Ludo Luo, to Luo, God's Luo. Was. Was. It. Lumo's expression turned exceptionally sinister. You won't be able to dodge the Imperial Sky's spear of judgment. The Imperial Sky represents the heavenly Tao, and I represent judgment. Extreme King's judgment. Boom! Since the first spear had failed, another stronger spear came piercing from the void. As this spear pierced out, the void where Yi Fei was located caved in like a black hole, crazily squeezing Yi Fei's body. At this point, not even the golden body of the ancient god could withstand the terrifying power of the divine spear. The violet gold taiji dimmed rapidly, and even the ghostly deity cauldron beneath his feet began to emit light. The intense cries trembled, as if it did not want to endure the pressure of the heavenly Tao's judgment. That's why Imperial Sky is so terrifying. Not only are there ancient gods in Imperial Sky, there are unimaginable geniuses in the divine prefecture. Just like Feng Yun, there are countless geniuses who can dominate the divine prefecture. Yi Fei, you should be happy. You can die without regrets under the Imperial Sky's judgment. Rinzhu Qiuyun's rigid face was filled with excitement. As long as Yi Fei died, Zhao Yu would give up on her, and the rift between her and her disciple would be mended sooner or later. A cold smile appeared on Divine King Qiuyun's face. She looked coldly at the masked quasi-emperor and said, I know who you are, but I won't expose you. Because Yi Fei will die under the Imperial Sky's judgment now. Boom! The huge spear radiance completely shattered the void where Yi Fei was and started to pulverize everything within it. The violet gold taiji and the ghostly deity door could not withstand it. After all, this was a great void mystique, an ancient god's technique. With such a technique, some of the genius disciples of Imperial Sky could fight against the ancient god emperors as godly lords. They could fight across two realms. It's over. Father has planned for so many years, but I'm afraid it's all for naught. Yang Dingtian, who was disguised as the masked quasi-emperor, sighed inwardly. The godly lords of the Yin-Yang Palace who were loyal to him also started to give up. Since Yi Fei was dead, why should they continue to fight against the palace of the Divine King and infuriate the Imperial Sky? What a pity! One day he rose from the wilderness, and the other he fell from the Imperial Sky. Yimo's life has come to an end. Rinzhu sighed and shook his head. He could not bear to see Yi Fei's figure being swallowed by the void as he faced the Imperial Sky's judgment. However, very few people noticed that the gaze of the youth who was being swallowed by the void was becoming more and more demonic. His aura was becoming more and more terrifying. He had not lost yet. Even if everyone thought that he would lose, he still wanted to fight. All because Lu Mo had evil thoughts about Zhao Yu. All because he wanted to protect the person he loved, Xiao Qiao, and the dragon turtle. Bloodline burn. I want to go crazy. Boom. Raging blood-red flames burned on Yi Fei's body. At the same time, Yi Fei activated the crazy demon battle technique once again and entered a state of complete madness. He seemed to have forgotten everything and became a puppet for battle. The black gold divine sword in his hand turned into a gigantic sword mountain that was a few hundred meters tall. Fight! Yi Fei roared angrily. He raised his sword and slashed the Imperial Sky, completely tearing apart the black hole in the void. From the muddy space, a youth who looked like an ancient god walked out step by step. Cauldron come! Yi Fei roared. The cauldron of the divine ghost that had shattered the void suddenly reformed and returned to his hand. Yi Fei held the sword in one hand and the cauldron in the other as he walked towards Lu Mo. The Imperial Sky is only SOSO. You will pay the price for what you said with your death. Lumo's expression was steely. He came from the Imperial Sky and did not even care about the quasi-emperors when he came down to the lower domain. Now, he could not even kill a godly lord like Yi Fei. How humiliating. Boom. An even stronger aura exploded from Lumo's body. Behind him, a terrifying blood-red Di Ying appeared. The three Rinzhu of the family Zhuang were shocked. Lu Mo must be an extremely important person in the Imperial Sky. Otherwise, he wouldn't know the Great Void Mystique or have a 10th grade bloodline. This Yi Fei is going to be crippled. No, Yi Fei can't be crippled and can't die. I will follow you back to the ancient tribe. However, you must save Yi Fei. Mad Dog finally made up his mind. Chapter 2566. Bloodline Elixir. Then don't attack. Just bestow him with treasures to raise his cultivation base. By the way, didn't we find a bloodline god pill in the ruins of an ancient sect on our way here? That pill can unleash the full power of one's bloodline in one go. As for whether he's willing to accept it or not, that will depend on his courage. Suddenly, one of the Rinzhu remembered something. He took out a pill from his pocket and tossed it to Yi Fei. Kid, you want to fight the Imperial Sky? Your bloodline is still lacking. This pill can ignite your bloodline. Do you dare to take it? As long as I can defeat this person and tear apart the Imperial Sky, why wouldn't I dare? In his crazed state, Yi Fei couldn't be bothered to think too much. The moment he grabbed the pill, he swallowed it. Even Rinzhu, who was in the family Zhuang, was shocked. He felt that Yi Fei was too demonic right now. Family Zhuang, you're courting death. He had completely suppressed Yi Fei and was about to kill him. However, Rinzhu of the family Zhuang actually gave Yi Fei a bloodline divine pill. Lu Mo was instantly enraged. However, he had no time to settle the score with Rinzhu of the family Zhuang. He had to kill this person before Yi Fei could refine the bloodline divine pill. Kill. The imperial heavenly judgment appeared once more. It was like the might of the heavenly Tao, like a supreme ancient god. Behind him, Di Ying and Lu Mo seemed to have become one. Together, they wielded their spears, piercing through the void and shaking the river of stars. However, it was at this moment that a demonic roar resounded through the void. A terrifying sword might tore through heaven and earth. Not even the three human ancestors of the Ji royal clan would have expected Yi Fei to possess the indestructible sword medallion. However, as soon as he refined the godly pill, a mysterious power of heaven and earth was formed, which fused with his bloodline. In the blink of an eye, Yi Fei's bloodline was condensed into an incomparably terrifying blood-red sword light. This light was the light of the divine tribulation blood sword. It came from Yi Fei's body and broke through the bloodline seal in Yi Fei's body once again. The entire world seemed to be filled with the aura of blood. That was the blood of battle, the blood of God's slaying. When the blood suddenly condensed into a blood sword, even Yang Dingtian and Xiao Shenwang felt an inexplicable fear, let alone Rinzhu. Lu Mo, who was facing the sword directly, suddenly froze. He watched in disbelief as the blood sword shattered his imperial celestial dipper and destroyed his imperial heavenly judgment. One had to know that this was a great void mystique, an ancient god's technique. Unless it was Yi Fei's blood sword. It was a great void mystique that was even stronger than the imperial heavenly judgment. Otherwise, Yi Fei would not be able to release a great void mystique as a godly lord in Rinzhu, Shatterer. Unless his bloodline is not at grade 10, it's a special existence that surpasses grade 10. That's why his natural mystique became so terrifying after being stimulated by the bloodline divine pill. Suddenly, Rinzhu from family Zhuang thought of something and looked at Yi Fei in disbelief. A bloodline that surpassed grade 10 was very rare in the 9 zones. If there were no accidents, such a bloodline would definitely break through to the ancient god realm. But now, it had appeared in Yi Fei's body? Impossible. This must be an illusion. How can your bloodline surpass? Lu Mo's eyes widened. When Yi Fei destroyed his imperial heavenly judgment, he felt that something was wrong and started to retreat. However, Yi Fei's demonic blood sword was even faster. In just one exchange, the blood sword had already pierced through Lu Mo's forehead, leaving a ghastly wound. One sword and Lu Mo was dead. In the crowd, ancient Emperor Crimson Moon's eyelids twitched violently. In a daze, he looked at Yi Fei and felt that he was facing a young, earthly emperor. In the sky, all the Rinzhu, including Yang Dingtian and divine King Xiao, were shocked. If Yi Fei could unleash his natural mystique and instantly kill Lu Mo, who had mastered the ancient god technique. Then he could naturally kill every Rinzhu present. However, Yi Fei didn't make a move. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but after unleashing that sword, he felt as if all the dark force and bloodline in his body had been emptied. He couldn't even control the indestructible sword token, and it fell from the sky. At this moment, a figure rushed into the sky and hugged Yi Fei. "What's going on? What did you do to Yi Fei? Why can't I feel any bloodline power in his body?" The person who rushed up was Shui Tuesday. He was currently glaring at the 3 Rinzhu from family Jiwang. The 3 of them shook their heads. "What a pity. If we knew that he had a bloodline that surpassed grade 10, we would have brought him back to our clan, even if it meant offending imperial heavens. Perhaps this is the will of the heavens. The divine bloodline elixir can unleash all of his bloodline power, but if his cultivation base can't withstand the power, he will suffer a backlash from his bloodline. From then on, he won't be able to use his bloodline power anymore, let alone unleash his natural mystique." When Rinzhu heard this, he and the slovenly Taoist quickly checked Yi Fei's body. Indeed, they found that Yi Fei's body was completely empty. There wasn't any bloodline power left. Mad Dog's eyes immediately turned red, as if he had gone mad. "You promised me that you would harm Yi Fei. Yet, you ended up harming Yi Fei. Yet, you still want me to return to the ancient race with you. Ji Feng, calm down. We've already said that we won't do anything. Whether he lives or dies depends on his fate. Now that he's alive, we've fulfilled our promise. If you don't obey us, we'll have to use force." The 3 Rinzhu were very impatient. The divine bloodline elixir they gave Yi Fei inadvertently helped Yi Fei kill Lu Mo. Now that things had gotten out of hand, they had to return to the royal clan as soon as possible. "Big brother Ji Feng, go with them." In the distance, Yi Fei looked weak. The loss of his bloodline made him mentally exhausted. However, he had already offended imperial heavens. He didn't want to ruin Mad Dog's opportunity. Moreover, if Mad Dog returned to the ancient clan, it would be safer for him to stay in Divine Land. But no buts. "If you treat me as a brother, then go. If there's a chance in the future, I'll visit you at the family Jiwang." Yi Fei shook his head resolutely. He knew that Ji Feng was a man of his word. If Ji Feng said that he would follow him, he would definitely follow him to his death. However, Lu Mo's death had too many implications. He had to consider Mad Dog's safety. Not only Mad Dog, but also Qing Zhou. Yi Fei planned to give up immediately. He grabbed Rinzhu's hand and said, "Rinzhu, give up Qing Zhou immediately. Split up and go into hiding. With Lu Mo's death, imperial heavens won't let this matter rest. We have to leave as soon as possible." But the palace of the Divine King. Rinzhu hesitated. Although Lu Mo was dead, Divine King Xiao and many Rinzhu from the palace of the Divine King were still around. Hearing this, Yi Fei laughed out loud and coughed up blood. "Who dares to touch me? I have a brother now. He's a descendant of the family Jiwang. Aren't they afraid of my brother's revenge if they touch me?" Mad Dog came to a realization. If he stayed, not only would he not be able to help Yi Fei, he would also be a burden to Yi Fei. However, if he went to the family Jiwang, he could become a powerful external force that could intimidate the forces in Divine Land. They wouldn't dare to go against Yi Fei and Qing Zhou. People of the palace of the Divine King, listen up. From today onwards, whoever dares to touch Yi Fei will be my enemy. I, Ji Feng, am a Mad Dog. I only know one thing. Whoever offends my brother, I'll exterminate his entire family. Uncles, let's go. Chapter 2567. Disdain to kill, brother. Take care of yourself. These were Ji Feng's last words. Hearing these words, Yi Fei couldn't help but smile despite his exhaustion. He swayed and stood up full of fighting spirit. Even if his bloodline was damaged, the fighting spirit in his heart wouldn't be extinguished. Without a sound, a big black turtle appeared beside Yi Fei. This time, the dragon turtle wasn't in a hurry to loot. Instead, it looked around vigilantly and protected Yi Fei. Yi Fei patted the dragon turtle's head. "Big Black, Don't just stand there. Use your strength and search for all the treasures on those two people. Yi Fei pointed at the two corpses on the ground. Those were the corpses of Li Moran and Lu Mo. One of them was an elder of the palace of the king of gods and had great authority. The other was an emissary of imperial sky and had an extraordinary status. Since he had already offended the palace of the king of gods and imperial sky, Yi Fei wouldn't hold back. Moreover, he had Rizu and the slovenly Taoist beside him to protect him. The dragon turtle rushed forward at the fastest speed and grabbed Li Moran's space belt. Many Rinzu from the palace of the king of gods saw this, and their eyelids twitched violently. However, no one stopped the dragon turtle from grabbing Lu Mo's space belt. The atmosphere suddenly became heavy. Not only divine King Qiu, but also Yang Dingtian stared at the space belt. They even had the intention to fight for it. Rizu and the slovenly Taoist's expressions changed. The dragon turtle was also anxious. It quickly turned around and looked at Yi Fei. All of you better think carefully. Lu Mo is from Imperial Sky. Whoever snatches something from him will be the enemy of Imperial Sky. Unless you're like me, you don't want to live anymore. Big Black, give me the space belt. Roar. A black shadow immediately flashed back to Yi Fei's side. Not only did the dragon turtle bring back the space belt, it also brought back Li Moran and Lu Mo's corpses. His speed shocked many of the human ancestors who wanted to fight for the corpse. God King Qiu's gaze was even colder as he stared at Yi Fei. Now that you've become a cripple, what's the point of keeping the treasure? Let me give you a piece of advice. If you kneel down now and beg for forgiveness from the heavens, you won't implicate your family. I'm sorry, but I don't kneel to the heavens and earth, nor do I respect gods and devils. I only believe in the sword in my hand. The thought in his heart, palace of the divine king. You went back on your words and sent Zhao Yu to Imperial Sky. I can't take revenge today, but one day I will fulfill my promise and flatten this palace of the divine king. Yi Fei's voice wasn't loud, and it even sounded extremely weak. However, his eyes were very bright. His gaze made even someone as strong as Autumn God King feel an inexplicable fear. Qiuyun Rinzu's killing intent was triggered. He roared furiously. Bastard, your bloodline has been destroyed, and you still dare to speak such arrogant words. Do you really think that I won't dare to kill you? Kill me if you have the guts. Rinzu, senior sword demon, step aside. I'll see who dares to kill me today. Yi Fei sneered and ignored Qiuyun Rinzu. He brought the dragon turtle and dragged the heavy black gold divine sword out of the city of the divine kings. Today, I'll leave with my sword. One day, I'll return with my sword. I'll find Zhao Yu, even if I have to slaughter Imperial Sky. Yi Fei's fighting spirit was even stronger, even if his blood ran dry, even if his soul was destroyed. All for the sake of finding the person he loved. Yi Fei dragged his sword and walked out of the city of the divine kings. Along the way, Rinzu and the divine lords from the palace of the divine kings glared at Yi Fei. Some of them were even emitting terrifying killing intent, but no one dared to make a move. Qiuyun Rinzu didn't dare to make a move. Autumn God King didn't dare to make a move either because of the words that Mad Dog had said before he left. I'll kill anyone who dares to kill my brother. If it was someone else, the palace of the divine kings would have taken it as a joke. However, the person who said it was Ji Feng, who came from a family Ji Wang that was stronger than the divine dynasty. Not to mention Autumn God King. Even the ancient emperor of the Crimson Moon hesitated. In the end, he ordered Yang Dingtian to give up the best chance to kill Yi Fei. After all, killing Yi Fei now could wipe out the threat that Yi Fei posed to the divine dynasty with the help of the earthly emperor spirit. However, if the news spread, Ji Feng would definitely avenge Yi Fei when he returned to his family Zhuang. Hence, the ancient emperor of the Crimson Moon fell silent. Seeing the ancient emperor's silence, Yang Dingtian, as his son, naturally didn't dare to make a move on Yi Fei. Therefore, under the watchful eyes of everyone in the city of the divine kings, countless gazes were fixed on Yi Fei as he slowly walked out of the city of the divine kings with his sword in hand. Many people were puzzled as to why Yi Fei didn't leave using the Divine Spirit Gate under the protection of Rizu. It wasn't until someone flew up and looked at the path that Yi Fei had taken that they were horrified to find out what had happened. Not only did Yi Fei's divine sword leave behind deep sword scars, but when these sword scars gathered together, they formed the word kill that was full of demonic power. This kid actually left such a glaring sword scar in front of so many experts in the Palace of the Divine Kings. What is he trying to do? Why didn't Rinzu of the Palace of the Divine Kings kill him? More and more experts from the city of the Divine Kings flew up to the sky and looked at the terrifying sword scar that had pierced through half of the city of the Divine Kings. The sword scar was so glaring and terrifying. In the crowd, Ziyu's expression was gloomy. She still remembered that several years ago, she had met Yi Fei for the first time in the Imperial All Heavens. At that time, Yi Fei was weak, unsophisticated, and unknown. She was so insignificant that she didn't want to have too much to do with Yi Fei. However, several years had passed since then. Had the youth that she had looked down on and been so arrogant grown to such a level? Although Yi Fei's body was heavily injured, he was dragging his sword behind him. The word kill was engraved in the city of the Divine Kings. However, no one in the city of the Divine Kings dared to make a move. Even though Yi Fei's back was facing the crowd, and he didn't have Rizu or the slovenly Taoist accompanying him to protect him. If this kid doesn't die today, he will definitely become a dragon and dominate the entire Divine Prefecture. This was the evaluation of Yi Fei by the martialists in the city of the Divine Kings. Humph! His bloodline has been destroyed. He is now just an ordinary martialist, a cripple. What's there for him to be arrogant about? How dare a cripple try to flatten the palace of the Divine Kings? What a joke! Divine King Chio's cold voice echoed throughout the city of the Divine Kings. He was telling everyone that the palace of the Divine Kings wasn't afraid of Yi Fei. They just pitted Yi Fei for being a cripple. The palace of the Divine Kings disdains to kill such a cripple. With that, the martialists from the palace of the Divine Kings all flew up and left the ruined deathmatch arena. When Yi Fei heard Divine King Chio's words, he sneered as he walked out of the city of the Divine Kings. Disdains? 3 years at the latest. I would like to see who will be the one disdaining the other. In the beast-marked space, Xiao Qiao clenched his fists and cheered for Yi Fei. As for Yi Fei's damaged bloodline, Xiao Qiao wasn't worried because Xiao Qiao had already used his Heaven-Earth God to check. Although Yi Fei's bloodline had been exhausted, the bloodline seal in Yi Fei's body was still there. As long as the seal was still there, it meant that Yi Fei's body still contained an extremely powerful bloodline. Chapter 2568, Emperor of the Ancients, but how exactly am I supposed to break the seal and reawaken my bloodline? Yi Fei was a bit worried. Killing Lu Mo had relieved some of the anger in his heart, but the price he had to pay was a bit too high. If you want to awaken your bloodline, I can help you. As Yi Fei spoke, a figure of an old man wearing a crown and a yellow robe walked out of the space in front of him. This old man's vitality was withered, and his body exuded a thick aura of death. Clearly, his lifespan was exhausted and he was about to die. However, the old man's aura was also very frightening. Faintly, he possessed the might of an emperor. Ancient Emperor Crimson Moon, you finally appeared. Yi Fei narrowed his eyes as he sized up Ancient Emperor Crimson Moon. You're not afraid? I'm scared to death. Yi Fei's expression was very calm. With Xiao Qiao's divine eyes of heaven and earth watching him, he already knew that Ancient Emperor Crimson Moon had been secretly spying on him. This was also the reason why Yi Fei wanted to send the Rizu and the slovenly Taoist away. In front of the Emperor of the Ancients, any tricks would be useless. It was better to face him head-on. Ancient Emperor Crimson Moon, tell me your purpose. What do you want from me? Yi Fei asked directly. Do you still remember the condition of me lending my troops to you? I said that I want you to do something for me. Now, it's time for you to do that. Give me Lu Mo's spatial belt. I only want a cultivation technique inside. Ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon said with a fervent look in his eyes. Hearing this, Yi Fei suddenly came to a realization. Lu Mo, you were the one who lured him here? I'm your bait, and he's your target. Your goal isn't to use Imperial Sky to kill me, but to use me to kill Lu Mo and steal his ancient god cultivation technique. It's so easy to talk to smart people. That's right, the one who sent Lu Mo to deal with you is me. Originally, I wanted to use Lu Mo to deal with you. Firstly, I wanted to see if you really had the ability to summon the earthly sovereign spirit again. Secondly, I also wanted to wait for Lu Mo to capture you and force out all your secrets before personally killing Lu Mo, taking his cultivation technique, and shifting the blame to you. This way, not only will I be able to obtain the ancient god's cultivation technique that I've been dreaming of, but I'll also be able to use someone else to do my dirty work. Not only will the Emperor Heaven continue to trust me, but I'll also be able to mobilize more resources to suppress the land, to prevent the remnants of the earthly sovereign from taking the opportunity to rise again. A strange look suddenly appeared in the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon's eyes. However, I didn't expect you to have a descendant of the family Zhuang by your side. Furthermore, you were able to obtain the Bloodline Divine Pill and kill Lu Mo instead. Now, you have no choice but to take the blame for killing the Emperor Heaven's envoy. Yi Fei finally realized that the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon's cowardice was just a facade. The real ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon was actually a venomous snake that had been hibernating all this while. He would always come out to bite people when they least expected it, and it would usually be a fatal blow. If it weren't for the family Zhuang's Bloodline Divine Pill, Yi Fei would have fallen into the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon's trap. At the thought of this, Yi Fei suddenly thought of two things. I can give you the ancient god's cultivation technique, but you have to answer two of my questions. Back then, why did the top 10 factions of the Divine Continent join forces to destroy the spiritual immortal tribe? Also, why did you destroy the Heavenly Palace of Despair? These were two questions that Yi Fei had to answer. At the mention of the spiritual immortal tribe, Xiao Chao's ears perked up. He even widened his eyes and looked at the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon angrily. Unfortunately, even the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon didn't notice the effects of the human Emperor's seal. He smiled bitterly and said, I knew it. Only the spiritual immortal tribe can awaken the ancient god's corpse spirit. The one who destroyed the spiritual immortal tribe was me, who gave the order to destroy the spiritual realm together with the top 10 factions. A powerful force suddenly pulled Yi Fei into a mysterious void. The ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon then said solemnly, Of course, that's only on the surface. The real situation is that for some reason, Imperial Sky didn't want the world to know that it was Imperial Sky who destroyed the spiritual immortal tribe. Therefore, Imperial Sky asked me to give the order to lead the top 10 factions to attack the spiritual realm. However, Imperial Sky secretly had many powerful Rinzu and ancient emperors appear to destroy the spiritual realm and slaughter the entire spiritual immortal tribe. However, I don't know why Imperial Sky did this. Xiao Chao couldn't believe what he had just heard. He quickly looked at Yi Fei. Yi Fei's expression was solemn as he looked at the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon seriously. However, he realized that the ancient emperor didn't show any signs of lying. Either the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon had concealed it too well, or he was telling the truth. The ones who destroyed the spiritual immortal tribe weren't the top 10 factions of the Divine Prefecture, but Imperial Sky. They used the identity of the top 10 factions of the Divine Prefecture as a cover to attack the spiritual realm. Then, why did you destroy the Heavenly Palace of Despair? Yi Fei continued to ask. The ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon was displeased. However, in order to obtain the ancient god's cultivation technique, he still replied coldly, because the palace master of the Heavenly Palace of Despair was too smart. He realized the truth behind the destruction of the spiritual immortal tribe and wanted to use it to threaten me. He wanted me to teach him the technique to break through to the ancient god realm. He was dreaming but he didn't know that I had a spy by his side. He wanted to steal the golden body of despair. However, when the palace master of the heavenly palace of despair threatened me, I was enraged and destroyed his entire heavenly palace. Yi Fei was shocked. Did that mean that the destruction of the heavenly palace of despair was their own doing? However, he didn't dare to believe the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon's words completely. He only asked suspiciously, "How can I believe you?" "You don't need to believe me. I don't care if you believe me. Hand over Lu Mo's cultivation technique, and I'll let you leave. I also promise that I won't make things difficult for the people of Qingzhou." What do you think? In order to show his sincerity, the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon took out an elixir pill and gave it to Yi Fei. This is the Scarlet Blood Elixir Pill. It can nourish your bloodline to the greatest extent. Even if it can't restore your bloodline, it can restore your bloodline to the level of a rank 5 or rank 6. Yi Fei took the elixir pill. He was still doubtful. However, when he saw the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon's face turning pale, he knew that he couldn't provoke the ancient emperor. After all, his biggest threat was the ancient emperor's trump card, which was the ability to summon the earthly emperor's spirit. Moreover, it could only be used to scare people. Once it was used, it would be exposed immediately. Regardless of whether this old fox is telling the truth or not, I don't have the ability to deal with the wrath of an ancient emperor, especially when the ancient emperor is about to die and is at his most frenzied. Yi Fei suddenly smiled and took out Lu Mo's space belt. He handed it to the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon and said, "Senior Ancient Emperor, Lu Mo's space belt is here. However, are you sure that there's an ancient god's cultivation technique in it?" "Humph. The leader of Imperial Sky has the surname Lu. Lu Mo is his youngest and most beloved illegitimate son. Other disciples of Imperial Sky might not have an ancient god's cultivation technique, but Lu Mo definitely has one." As he spoke, the ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon had already destroyed the restriction on the space belt. After searching for a while, he quickly found a golden handwritten book. "Ha ha ha! This is great. This time, there's hope for me to break through to the ancient god realm. Yi Fei, I'll give you 3 days. Take your people and leave the territory of the Scarlet Moon Holy Court immediately. You're not allowed to set foot in it ever again. Otherwise, don't blame me for being ruthless." Chapter 2569. Leave after killing Li Moran and Lu Mo. Why didn't Yi Fei do it himself and plunder their treasures? That was because the dragon turtle had an ability that no one else had, and that was that he was diligent and secretive in his actions. In the past, every time the dragon turtle plundered treasures, it would always hide something when Yi Fei and Xiao Chao were not paying attention. This time, it was just as Yi Fei had expected. When he saw the lousy turtle squatting there without moving, Yi Fei guessed that the dragon turtle had most likely taken the treasures for himself again. As expected, Yi Fei patted the dragon turtle with his hand, and the dragon turtle was immediately exposed. However, this time, Yi Fei did not scold the dragon turtle. Instead, he praised it. "Big Black, you did well this time." This golden page was exactly the same as the one the Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor had found in Lu Mo's spatial belt. This meant that it was very likely to be a part of the ancient god's cultivation technique. Yi Fei praised the dragon tortoise, which was a rare occurrence. The dragon tortoise immediately came to its senses. Not only did it not make any mistakes this time, it even seemed to have made a great contribution. If it did not righteously ask for more food now, when would it be? As a result, a small wooden tablet was naturally extended in front of Yi Fei. Yi Fei's face darkened. This stupid tortoise. How could it be reasonable for him to hide treasures? "Xiao Chao, drag him in and beat him up." When Xiao Chao saw that the dragon turtle actually dared to hide such a good and shiny item instead of taking it out, she was also very angry. She dragged the dragon turtle by its tail and ran into the beast-marked space to seriously educate it. At this moment, the sound of something breaking through the air could be heard from the city of the Divine Kings. It was Rizu and the slovenly Taoist sending back the wizards who had accompanied them. They had also chased them out of the city. Xuetu was also following them. Young Master Yi, you have done Xuetu a great favor by killing Limoran. From now on, Xuetu's life is in your hands. Xuetu came over and bowed deeply. Yifei quickly avoided him and helped Xuetu up. Senior Xuetu, don't be like this. If you didn't ask Mad Dog to follow me, I might have fallen into the Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor's trap today and died in the city of the Divine Kings. What did you say, Yifei? Scarlet Ancient Emperor Scarlet Moon? Rizu and the slovenly Taoist were very nervous. After all, that was the Ancient Emperor, the most powerful realm in the Divine Prefecture. Rizu's eyes flashed with hatred. Seeing Rizu's expression, Yifei hesitated for a moment. In the end, he told Rizu about the Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor destroying the Heavenly Palace of Despair. Rizu flew into a rage when he heard that. That's impossible. I know the Palace Lord. He's not that kind of person. Rizu, it's useless to say this now. Lu Mo is already dead. Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor obtained the Imperial Heaven technique. Even if he can't break through to the Ancient God Realm, his lifespan will definitely be extended and he will return to the peak of the Ancient God Realm. We must leave the Divine Prefecture as soon as possible. After all, the Divine Prefecture was still under the control of the Scarlet Moon Divine Dynasty. In the past, the Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor was nearing the end of his lifespan. He could only turn a blind eye to the major forces of the Divine Prefecture. However, once the Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor became strong again, the 10 major forces of the Divine Prefecture would definitely bear the brunt of his attacks. In particular, Yifei had destroyed the Sword Palace in one go. He would become a major threat to the Divine Dynasty. At that thought, Yifei did not have time to look at the golden page. He quickly went through the spiritual gate with Rizu and the slovenly Taoist and returned to Qingzhou. Qingzhou had just experienced a great battle. The people were in a terrible situation. It was bleak and desolate. However, the surroundings of Qianwu Imperial City were bustling with activity. The essence of Qingzhou was gathered here. When news of Yifei leading his men to destroy the Sword Palace spread, Qingzhou was in an uproar. However, when news of Yifei killing the Imperial Sky emissary spread, Qingzhou was in a state of panic. Grand Supreme Dean, Guardian Elders, Uncle Jian, and Elders, this is the situation. The current Qingzhou is no longer suitable for us to develop. The Imperial Sky emissary will not let Lu Mo's death go so easily. Therefore, I plan to leave the Divine Prefecture and this layer of heaven. I plan to enter the heaven where the Imperial Sky Emissary is and take a look. The 9 heavens of the Heaven Realm were divided into 9 regions. The Heaven region where the Red Moon Holy Dynasty was located was the weakest among the 9 regions. Outside the Heaven region, there were many more powerful Heaven regions that were filled with countless geniuses. There were countless geniuses like Feng Yun who could dominate the Divine Prefecture in the 9 regions. Yifei wanted to see them for himself. Seeing that Yifei had made up his mind, no one dared to stop him. Only Emperor Zhaosheng asked worriedly, Yifei, if you leave, what will happen to Qingzhou? It's simple. Give up. The revenge of the Imperial Sky Emissary will come at any time. The Scarlet Moon Divine Dynasty will not watch us develop. The only thing we can do now is to break up and hide in different parts of the Divine Prefecture. We will develop quietly and wait for Yifei to return. Perhaps we will be able to fight against the Divine Dynasty one day. Then, we will come back and reunite, the Tianfa Quasi-Emperor said with difficulty. Hearing this, although everyone was unwilling, they understood that this might be the only way at the moment. Therefore, the entire Qingzhou quickly took action. For this operation, not only did the forces of the Earth domain have to disperse, but they also had to abandon the heavens where the heavenly tree was located and find a new safe place to live. Long Guang and Bai Suifeng had already led the Draconians and the forces of the Lord Pan Palace to hide their identities and relocate to the outskirts of the Shenma continent. Most of the people of the Earth domain also followed in. However, There were still many young cultivators from the Earth domain who decided to hide their identities and continue to train in the Divine Prefecture. Almost overnight, the forces of the entire Qingzhou seemed to have completely disappeared. Yi Fei, Di Fan, Zhao Qianjun, and the others also stood on the imperial city of the Tianwu continent and said goodbye to each other. Yi Fei, let's have a competition when we head to the other heavens. Let's see who can break through Rinzhu first and become the emperor of the ancients. Di Fan looked at Yi Fei with a fighting spirit in his eyes. All right, let's compete. Yi Fei did not reject. He and Di Fan were close friends and also strong rivals. Moreover, with a natural saint like Di Fan constantly spurring him on, his improvement would only be faster. Di Fan obviously had the same idea. The two of them smiled and clasped their hands tightly together. Then, Zhao Qianjun, Fu Renjia, Lu Qing, Bai Yanran, Bai Shizhong, Peng Bei, Xia Jun, and Luo Shi clasped their hands together. They stared at each other, and finally, a thunderous "Take care" was heard from the void. Everyone's figures had already soared into the sky and were heading towards their own goals. Within the palace, Emperor Zhao Sheng, who was accompanied by the Supreme Dean and the Quasi-Emperor of Tianfa, looked at the group of young people who had spread their wings and soared into the sky. He sighed and said, "Two imperial advisors, who do you think is more talented between Yi Fei and Di Fan? Who do you think will break through to the ancient emperor realm?" "Your Majesty, this is hard to say. In terms of talent and luck, Di Fan is unparalleled. However, in terms of hard work, no one could be as crazy as Yi Fei. I believe that no matter what difficulties Yi Fei faces, he will become the greatest hope of the Earth domain in the end. Perhaps in 3 to 5 years, when Yi Fei and Di Fan both return, the people of the Earth domain will not only be able to travel to and from the Heaven domain openly, but we will also be able to dominate the Divine Prefecture and even the First Heaven." Chapter 2570. Yao Yu news of the disappearance of the Qingzhou factions spread like wildfire across the entire Divine Prefecture. News of Yi Fei's great battle in the Palace of the Divine King spread like wildfire. Although few people saw the battle with their own eyes, the demonic word "kill" in the city of the Divine King shocked everyone. On the day Yi Fei left, the disciples of the Divine King Palace tried to destroy the word "kill," but the result was shocking. No matter who it was, as long as they got close to the word "kill," they would feel an intense aura. It was like the Emperor of Swords. Not long after, a swordsman approached the kill mark with a probing attitude. This time, the Downlord swordsman wasn't harmed by the sword might contained within the mark. On the contrary, the swordsman's sword Dao actually advanced by leaps and bounds during the process of comprehending the mark. It reached an inconceivable level. The chief disciple of the Dishes sect, Yi Mo's sword Dao, is so terrifying that a sword mark can help people comprehend the sword Dao. As the news spread, the entire city of the Divine King was alarmed. All the martial artists who used the sword rushed towards the sword mark. Like the swordsman from before, all the Dao lords who used the sword would not be attacked by the sword mark when they entered the range of the word "kill." Instead, they could comprehend Yi Fei's sword Dao through the outline of the sword mark. It felt as if they were fighting against Yi Fei at the same level at any time. Although they would always lose, this kind of failure could promote their sword Dao and improve continuously. Yi Mo's sword Dao is really close to demonic. Such a sword mark engraved in the city of the Divine King is equivalent to giving all the martial artists who cultivate the sword a special experience. Why is Yi Mo doing this? Some people did not understand why Yi Fei wanted to leave his sword Dao opportunity in the city of the Divine King before he left. However, soon, some people understood Yi Fei's intention. Just as the palace of the Divine King received news that the sword mark engraved by Yi Fei was difficult to remove and that Rinzhu had to come forward to do it. The actions of the Palace of Divine Kings were opposed by all the swordsmen in the City of Divine Kings. After all, Yi Fei's sword scar was public knowledge. As long as the sword scar existed, All the Dao lords and swordsmen in the divine prefecture could come here to comprehend Yi Fei's sword Dao and improve their own sword Dao. If it was erased, it would undoubtedly destroy an opportunity for all the swordsmen in the divine prefecture. Yi Fei's intentions are worthy of death. He used the sword mark to attract swordsmen from all over the divine continent to observe it. If we forcefully erase the sword mark, we will offend all the swordsmen of the divine continent and end their fortuitous encounters. But if we don't erase it, it will undoubtedly become a disgrace to our divine king palace. When Qiuyun Renzu heard the news, she immediately flew into a rage. She poked the bottom of her bowl with her chopsticks and scolded angrily. Yimo should have died long ago. Yimo should have died long ago. Why hasn't that demon died yet? But no matter how much she scolded, it was useless. Faced with the danger of offending all the swordsmen of the divine continent and the families behind them, no matter how angry the palace of divine kings was, they could not publicly erase the sword scar and end the fortuitous encounters of the swordsmen of the divine continent. Of course, the palace of divine kings was not without countermeasures. Since they could not use force, the palace of divine kings issued a reward. Whoever could decipher the sword scar that Yi Fei had carved on the ground would be able to enter the palace of divine kings and become the personal disciple of the quasi-emperor. When the news spread, all the Dao lords who cultivated the sword Dao in the entire divine prefecture were in an uproar. Whether it was to comprehend Yi Fei's sword Dao or to become the disciple of the quasi-emperor, it was a great opportunity for these young swordsmen. Even Yi Fei himself did not expect that the sword scar that he had engraved in anger in the city of divine kings would have such a huge impact. Of course, Yi Fei also did not know how much the ancient emperor of the Crimson Moon had suffered because of the dragon turtle's habit of hiding the golden page. It was only when he returned to the palace excitedly and could not wait to cultivate the ancient god's cultivation technique that the ancient emperor of the Crimson Moon vomited blood when he discovered that the cultivation technique he had obtained was divided into two parts. The first part could only be cultivated up to the ultimate ancient emperor realm. Only the second part recorded the method to break through to the ancient god realm and the method to condense the imperial celestial handle. When he discovered this, the ancient emperor of the Crimson Moon roared furiously like vicious beasts throughout the entire imperial city. Men, capture Yimo for me. This bastard is despicable. He even dared to play tricks on me. Boom! Suddenly, a thunderbolt struck down from the clear sky. Then, a torrential downpour poured down like a basin of water. The dragon turtle was the overlord of the water. When it saw the rain, it rolled around comfortably in the rain. On the other hand, Yi Fei and Xiao Qiao were born and raised in this area. They were very unhappy with this torrential rain. Moreover, this torrential rain was not an ordinary torrential rain. It was called demonic rain. When ordinary demons stirred up trouble, they would summon such a strange torrential rain. Due to the demonic aura contained in the torrential rain, if low-level cultivators were to come into contact with it, the demonic aura would enter their bodies and cause them to go berserk. They would not even recognize their own family and go on a killing spree. Therefore, every time the demonic rain appeared, the entire area around the torrential rain would be dead silent. Of course, with Yi Fei's current cultivation realm, he naturally did not have to worry about the demonic aura. The dragon turtle was a fierce demon, so it was even more immune to the demonic aura. However, other than the dragon turtle, Yi Fei and Xiao Qiao were not in a good mood when they were drenched in this strange rain that contained demonic aura. Xiao Qiao, hurry up and look for a place to take shelter from the rain, Yi Fei said to Xiao Qiao, who was riding on his neck. As the demonic rain was too heavy, Xiao Qiao's tonghalu had melted and turned into a sweet syrup that splattered all over Yi Fei's face. If this continued, they would not even be able to grab the dragon turtle and shake it, let alone eat the tonghalu. Xiao Qiao threw away the tonghalu, which was a rare sight. He became very serious and serious. He used his divine eyes of heaven and earth to look around. He constantly looked through the layers of rain to find a place to take shelter from the rain. Finally, Xiao Chao seemed to have discovered something. Xiao Chao pointed in a certain direction and made many hand gestures. Yi Fei was dazzled by the gestures, but he roughly understood what Xiao Chao meant. There's a cave in front to take shelter from the rain, but there are many cultivators inside. Yi Fei was secretly surprised, but when he looked at the endless demonic rain and the sticky syrup on his face, Yi Fei decisively decided to go to the cave to take shelter from the rain. At this time, the cave was already crowded with people. These were all cultivators who were hurrying on their way. There were strong and weak cultivators, ranging from Tao Lords to Celestial Venerables. However, Tao Lord cultivators usually occupied a spacious area in the cave to rest. The weakest Celestial Venerables consciously stood at the edge of the cave to prevent themselves from being drenched by the demonic rain. When Yi Fei walked over, the entire cave was already crowded with cultivators. When they saw Yi Fei running over, their faces were smeared with syrup. They did not look like senior experts, but they strode into the cave. Several Tao Lords standing inside stood up together and shouted angrily, "Stop! Who allowed you to come in? This place is full. If you want to take shelter from the demonic rain, quickly go to the next cave." Chapter 2571. Mount Longdi. Since this Tao Lord was being impolite, there was no need for him to be polite either. He found an empty space and sat down. He then called out to the other low-level warriors who were standing at the edge of the cave. "What are you all doing outside? There's a lot of space inside, so it's more than enough to accommodate you." No one went over, and no one spoke to Yi Fei. Many people even looked at Yi Fei with sympathy. They felt that Yi Fei was too blind. He could have offended anyone, but he just had to offend the strongest family Wong in Sky Dragon City. The Tao Lord who had asked the question turned livid on the spot. A faint killing intent was brewing in his body. A cold glint flashed across Yi Fei's eyes. He didn't want to cause trouble, but if someone dared to provoke him, he wouldn't mind killing them to establish his authority. Forget it. He's right. The space inside is so big. Why are we the only ones who can stay inside while the others have to stay outside? Let them all in. At that moment, a woman with a veil on her face, standing in the middle of the group of Tao Lords, spoke faintly. Yi Fei realized that the Tao Lords in the cave were divided into two groups. One group was dressed in golden robes embroidered with heavenly dragons. From the looks of the low-level warriors, they were also afraid of this group of Tao Lords. As for the other group, their leader was actually a woman. From the looks of it, she had just broken through to become an early-stage Tao Lord not too long ago. However, she was quite beautiful, and she was accompanied by 5 middle-aged Tao Lords dressed in azure battle robes. As soon as the woman spoke, the 5 middle-aged Tao Lords frowned, but they didn't refute her. The Tao Lord who had just scolded her had an ugly expression and was about to explode, but someone beside him whispered a few words to him. Only then did the Tao Lord back off unwillingly. I'll give Family Wong some face this time, but there won't be a next time. Once the demonic rain stops, all irrelevant people will scram from Dragon Emperor Mountain. So this place is called the Dragon Emperor Mountain. I wonder how far it is from the Imperial Sky. Yi Fei thought to himself. The first thing he thought of when he left the first heaven of the Divine Continent was to head to the Imperial Sky. After all, Zhao Yu had already been sent to the Imperial Sky. However, the area of the Heaven Realm was simply too big. Every layer of heaven was a different region. Without a specialized teleportation platform to guide the direction, it was undoubtedly a very difficult task to find the Emperor's Sky. Just as Yi Fei was in a daze, the low-level ancient martial art practitioners, who had been frozen by the demonic rain and demonic aura, heard that they could enter the inner part of the cave to take shelter from the rain. Yi Fei realized with a bitter smile that the inner part of the cave, which was the safest part, was already filled with people. Helpless, he could only sit cross-legged near the outer part of the cave. Upon seeing this, the family Wang's Tao Lord was disdainful. So he's just a hothead. I thought he had some skills when he barged in without a care. Only that girl from the Liu family is kind. Young miss, it seems that we were wrong. This person is not a hidden expert. On the Liu family's side, a few middle-aged Dao lords also frowned and sighed. Liu also shook her head secretly. Looking at Yi Fei, who was with a group of heavenly venerables, she sighed and no longer paid any attention to him. The area of this demonic rain was also extraordinarily vast. Yi Fei had stayed in the cave for a day and did not see any signs of the demonic rain stopping. He could not help but feel puzzled. Usually, demonic rain is caused by powerful, ferocious demons causing havoc. It will end very quickly. Why is the demonic rain here non-stop? One had to know that the dragon turtle was a ferocious demon. If the dragon turtle was willing, it could also step on demonic aura and summon clouds and rain. However, when one thought of the dragon turtle's laziness and gluttony, one would want the dragon turtle to summon the rain. That was simply wishful thinking. Yi Fei's face instantly darkened. However, Yi Fei's words still resonated with many low-level ancient martial art practitioners. They all began to discuss. That's right. Will this demonic rain stop? It's already been 3 days. Could it be that the primordial Fey dragon has not been killed yet? Primordial Fey dragon? Brother, may I ask what's going on? Upon hearing about the primordial Fey dragon, Yi Fei's interest was piqued. After all, although he had escaped unscathed from the city of divine kings, he had been left with a hidden illness. That was the bloodline divine elixir, which had almost drained all of his blood. Although the ancient emperor of Crimson Moon had given him an elixir that could restore his blood, Yi Fei did not dare to casually consume it when he thought of the ancient emperor of Crimson Moon's sinister and venomous endurance. Now, not only did he not have the aura of his blood, but if he did not activate his dark force, no one would be able to sense his cultivation level. This was also the reason why the family king's Dao lords were so rude when they saw Yi Fei barge in. This was because they did not sense any aura of an expert from Yi Fei. Yi Fei's appearance was very similar to many destitute ancient martial art practitioners. It was just that in the end, they were unable to sense Yi Fei's specific realm. This caused Liu Yu to have a trace of a probing thought. However, the result of her probing greatly disappointed Liu Yu. Of course, Yi Fei didn't know about this. Looking at Yi Fei's miserable appearance with the sugar water all over his face, the warrior who was questioned couldn't help but feel sympathy for him. He suddenly stuffed 2 pieces of dark stones into Yi Fei's hands and said, "Little brother, you are really risking your life. You're already like this, and you still want to go to the Dragon Emperor Mountain to look for treasures? Look at this demonic rain. It has been going on for 3 days, but it is still so strong. This shows how terrifying the primordial Fey Dragon's cultivation level is. Listen to my advice and hurry back to Sky Dragon City with me. I know that the Pleasant Immortal restaurant is still lacking a waiter. Brother, I appreciate your kindness. When I reach Sky Dragon City, I will definitely go to the Pleasant Immortal restaurant. Please ask about the proper business first." Yi Fei suppressed his depressed mood and asked with a bitter smile. The ancient martial art practitioner then explained with a smile. Yi Fei knew that the area he entered was Sky Dragon City of the Second Heaven. Sky Dragon City was under the rule of the Red Dragon Divine Dynasty. However, compared to the declining Red Moon Divine Dynasty, the Red Dragon Divine Dynasty was at least 10 times stronger. As for this Dragon Emperor Mountain, it was said that a son of heaven of the true dragon clan had fallen here. The dragon's body turned into a dragon mountain. It often attracted many demonic beasts with dragon blood to gather here. It had also become the most dangerous area around Sky Dragon City. However, the most dangerous one was an ancient flood dragon that had recently occupied Dragon Emperor Mountain. It was said that this flood dragon entered Dragon Emperor Mountain and by chance obtained the bloodline inheritance of the son of heaven of the true dragon clan. Not only did it obtain the blood of a true dragon, but it also transformed from a flood dragon into a true primordial Fey dragon. It is said that the bloodline of the primordial Fey dragon is incomparably powerful. Refining a single drop can allow a martial artist descendant to give birth to a low-grade Fey dragon bloodline. If they bathe in dragon blood, they can even increase their cultivation by a small realm. Of course, the most precious thing is the primordial dragon pill. It is said that whoever can obtain it will have a bloodline comparable to the primordial Fey dragon. However, these are just rumors. Little Empyreans like us are worse than cannon fodder in the heavenly world. We are only a little better than ordinary people. You and I don't need to crave such treasures. Chapter 2572. Immemorial monster dragon Yi Fei smiled and did not explain further. He just casually chatted with the cultivators around him. From these cultivators, Yi Fei already knew that the imperial sky he was looking for was in the Scarlet Dragon Divine Dynasty. However, these low-level cultivators did not know the exact location. Moreover, in the Scarlet Dragon Divine Dynasty, other than the imperial sky, there were many other forces named after the heaven domain. They were not much weaker than the imperial sky. For example, the family Jiwang was such a force. Many low-level cultivators dreamed of joining these forces. Of course, people like us can only dream about it. Even if we want to join them, those forces will not be interested in us. Brother Yi, you're still young. You should be honest and stay in Sky Dragon City. As for those treasures and whatnot, it's best that you don't pursue them too much. Wang Chong said sincerely. He was experienced. When he saw Yi Fei's honest face, he could not help but say a few more words. Although Yi Fei was depressed, he knew that Wang Chong did not mean any harm. He could only smile and say, Brother Wang, you asked me to leave. Why did you not leave? Why did you come to Dragon Emperor Mountain? Yi Fei glanced at Wang Chong. The strength of a late-stage heavenly venerable was not bad among low-level cultivators. However, Wang Chong did not have a bloodline or any special fortuitous encounters. If nothing unexpected happened, it would be difficult for him to break through to the ruler realm. Wang Chong sighed. Sigh, I'm not afraid of being laughed at by you. My life is over. However, I still have a young son. Back then, his mother ignored the family's objection and followed me, a poor family. After so many years, not only did I not give her any benefits, but I also made her suffer a lot. Recently, when she returned to her mother's home, she was humiliated by her family. I can be trash, but I cannot let my son be trash like me. I want him to break through to the ruler realm and become the Lord of Heaven. Therefore, I came to Dragon Emperor Mountain on impulse. I want to try my luck and see if I can get a drop of the monster dragon's blood. A single drop of dire dragon blood wouldn't be able to change one's own destiny, but it would allow one's descendants to possess a low-tier dire dragon bloodline. Although it would still be a long way from becoming a Tao Lord, it would still be of great help in breaking through to become a hegemon or the Lord of Heaven. There were many other low-level martial artists who came to search for the Phantom Dragon's blood with the same goal as Wang Chong. However, under the pressure of family Wang, these low-level warriors were all dejected. They knew that once the bewitching rain stopped, they would be kicked out of the Dragon Emperor Mountain. Wang Chong's expression was also gloomy. Although his surname was Wang, he had nothing to do with family Wang of the Sky Dragon City. Pity the hearts of all parents in the world. For these two profound stones, shouldn't I help Wang Chong? Yi Fei pinched the two magnetite stones in his hands and thought silently. At this moment, the demon rain outside finally showed signs of stopping. At least the demon aura in the storm was not as strong. The Tao Lord of family Wang stood up and said coldly, The bewitching rain has stopped. All unrelated people should leave the Dragon Emperor Mountain immediately. Otherwise, don't blame us for being ruthless. Sensing the murderous intent of the Tao Lord of family Wang, many low-level martial artists were very unwilling. However, they could only stand up and walk out of the cave. They walked out of the Dragon Emperor Mountain gloomily. Wang Chong was the same. Yi Fei had no intention of stopping them. Instead, he walked out with Wang Chong. Tao Lord of family Wang, who had been targeting Yi Fei earlier, was full of disdain when he saw this. On the other side, Tao Lord Lu shook his head secretly and no longer paid attention to Yi Fei. All the Tao Lords rushed into the depths of the Dragon Emperor Mountain almost as soon as the bewitching rain stopped. At this moment, Yifei also stopped. He narrowed his eyes and looked in the direction of the Dragon Emperor Mountain. Brother Wang, give me a map of the Sky Dragon City first. I'll look for you in a while. Brother, are you crazy? Didn't you hear what Family Wang said? This place has been taken over by Family Wang and the other major forces. If we don't leave now and get discovered, we could die at any time. Wang Chong was shocked. Yifei smiled and shook his head. Brother Wang, you don't have to worry. It's just an immemorial demonic dragon. I'll be back soon. With a whoosh, Yifei's figure disappeared in front of Wang Chong. Wang Chong was left alone. He stared blankly in the direction Yifei disappeared. He realized that Yifei was not as honest and simple as he had imagined. Instead, he gave him the illusion that he was very confident and powerful. However, when he thought of Yifei's weak strength among the heavenly venerables and that he was alone, how could he fight for the immemorial demonic dragon under the joint efforts of so many forces in the Sky Dragon City? Wang Chong kept shaking his head and secretly felt sorry for Yifei. The demonic rain is a method that the immemorial demonic dragon uses to protect itself. Now that the demonic rain has stopped, it seems like the immemorial demonic dragon is in a bad situation. Xiao Xiao, quickly help me sense the immemorial demonic dragon's direction. Roar. Before Xiao Xiao could make a move, the dragon turtle had already rushed out with a roar and ran wildly in a certain direction. Yifei and Xiao Xiao were both stunned. This lousy turtle was lazy when it ate. When did it become so active? Could it be that what Wang Chong said is true? This Dragon Emperor Mountain is really formed by a real dragon. The dragon turtle has the blood of the demonic dragon in its body. Naturally, it would be attracted to the Dragon Emperor Mountain. The more they thought about it, the more likely it seemed. Combined with the dragon turtle's current agitated emotions, Yifei immediately brought Xiao Qiao and followed behind the dragon turtle. They quickly rushed into the deepest part of the Dragon Emperor Mountain. At this moment, the roar of a demonic dragon suddenly came from inside. That roar was filled with great anger and despair. It collided with a powerful Sir God Realm Elder. That elder immediately screamed in pain. His entire body exploded into ashes under the immemorial demonic dragon's desperate attack. The Liu family's warriors who had just rushed over stared with their eyes wide open. Old ancestor, grandfather. It turned out that this Sir God Realm Elder who died in battle was the old ancestor of the Sky Dragon City's Liu family. On the other side, there was another Sir God from the family Wang. When he saw the elder being attacked by the demonic dragon, not only did he not help him, he even took the initiative to retreat. He allowed the demonic dragon to kill the elder with a violent attack. This scene was coincidentally witnessed by the Liu family's warriors who had rushed over. They were all enraged. Family Wang, you went back on your word. We agreed to work together to fight against the demonic dragon. In the end, you deliberately killed my grandfather. Liu Yu, who had rushed over, drew her sword and charged towards the family Wang's Sir God with bloodshot eyes. The Sir God from the family Wang who had rushed over naturally would not let Liu Yu have her way. Soon, these Sir Gods released their killing intent and charged towards the Liu family's warriors. This was also the reason why the family Wang warriors had to chase away those low-level warriors. The Sir God from the family Wang, who was standing in the distance, looked at Liu Yu coldly and said, "So what if you went back on your word? In this world, strength is all that matters. Whoever has the bigger fist is the truth. It's your Liu family's own stupidity. Did you really think that we would work together with you? Kill them. As for that girl, you can do whatever you want with her." Chapter 2573. True Dragon Blood Pool. It turned out that the dragon had refused to retreat because she wanted to protect the fetus in her womb. Otherwise, with the strength of the demonic dragon, even if she was besieged by two Sir Gods, she would still be able to fight her way out. However, the fetus in her womb affected the immemorial demonic dragon's combat power. In order to protect the fetus in her womb, the demonic dragon would rather be besieged than let the two Sir Gods hit her in the abdomen. When she heard the threat from Sir God Family Wong, the primordial dragon's huge eyes flashed with intense pain and anger. She let out an earth-shattering dragon roar, bringing with it storm. Sir God Family Wong was completely enraged. Evil creature, I wanted to keep your child alive so that you can work for my family Wong. Since you are unwilling, I will kill both you and your child today. Boom! The surging Sir God's aura was like a huge wave. It smashed the dragon flames of the primordial dragon. Another blood-curdling scream was heard. It was from the Tao Lords of Family Wong. They had the advantage of numbers, and Sir God Family Wong had purposely leaked his Sir God's aura to suppress them. They had successfully killed all the Tao Lords of Liu family. In the end, only Liu Yu was left. They did not kill her, but laughed maniacally. Ha ha! I have long heard of the beauty of the Liu family's young lady. Liu Yu, do you want to remove your veil and clothe yourself? Or do you want us to help you? Shameless. You bunch of beasts. Liu Yu, would rather die than be humiliated by you. Liu Yu turned her sword around and was about to commit suicide. However, at this moment, an even more terrifying sword aura suppressed her body. Then, a vast sea of blood swallowed up all the warriors of Family Wong. At the same time, a young man wearing a bronze mask appeared in front of Liu Yu. This bronze mask was left behind by Yi Fei in the arena of life and death as the human emperor. Now that he did not want to reveal his identity, he could use it. Liu Yu stared blankly at the powerful young man who had appeared in front of her. She was even more terrified when she saw that the warriors of Family Wong who had tried to humiliate her were all killed by the young man's sword. Bastard, I am Sky Dragon City's Family Wong. My Family Wong belongs to the Muyang Palace. Who are you? How dare you kill my clansmen? The Family Wong Sir God, who was battling the Fey Dragon, was greatly alarmed. He no longer cared about killing the Fey Dragon as he hurriedly rushed back. His eyes were bloodshot as he charged towards Yi Fei. One of the Family Wong warriors that Yi Fei had just killed was of his bloodline. However, Yi Fei had no sympathy for the evil deeds of the Family Wong warriors and the despicable actions of the Family Wong Sir God. After the cold sword light, the 6 heavenly cauldrons suddenly appeared, forming the 6 paths of reincarnation and blasting forward. However, Divine Lord Family Wong was truly impressive. A divine runic armor appeared on his body and blocked Yi Fei's sure-kill divine power. A divine power comparable to Renzu's attack? I don't care who you are. My Family Wong will definitely avenge you. Sensing Yi Fei's terrifying combat strength, Divine Lord Family Wong retreated decisively and prepared to escape from Dragon Emperor Mountain. Kill! Yi Fei did not give him a chance to escape. Suddenly, a pair of huge azure dragon wings appeared on his back. He carried Yi Fei and blocked the path of Divine Lord Family Wong at an unparalleled speed. Another ghost god light smashed out furiously. The Family Wong Sir God saw in horror that Yi Fei's ghost god cauldron had already shattered his skull. It had also shattered his sky palace and divine soul. Family Wong's 3rd ancestor is dead. Liu Yu looked at the void in horror. She could not imagine how terrifying the young man with the bronze mask must be to have such terrifying combat strength. In the distance, the primordial Fey dragon let out a roar of despair. She was already powerless against the Wong family's divine lords. Now that she was facing the even stronger Yi Fei, the Fey dragon lost all will to fight. All she could do was whine and bang her head against the mountain to commit suicide. Roar! Roar! The dragon turtle ran over hurriedly and hugged the immemorial monster dragon's leg. It seemed to be saying something. The immemorial monster dragon was shocked. Naturally, she could feel the monster dragon bloodline in the dragon turtle. Yi Fei also took the opportunity to say, "Sister Monster Dragon, I have no ill intentions towards you. It's just that my turtle is most likely in heat. Please forgive me." In heat? Liu Yu looked at the dragon turtle, and her face suddenly flushed red. The immemorial monster dragon also revealed a shy expression. However, Yi Fei's attitude made her relax. "Sir, your little turtle is not like that. It should be the same as me, attracted to the pearl of the true dragon. If I'm willing to give up the pearl of the true dragon, I wonder if you can spare my life and the child in my womb? Sister, you are being too serious. Since you are willing to hand over the pearl of the true dragon, I naturally won't harm your life. However, I heard that bathing in dragon blood can raise one's cultivation level. Yi Fei was a little conflicted. It would be great if the dragon turtle was not in heat. Now that it was, he would be too embarrassed to attack the immemorial monster dragon. In the beast mark space, Xiao Chao covered his eyes shyly. However, he could not help but peek his eyes out from between his fingers. He wanted to see what the dragon turtle looked like when it was in heat. The immemorial monster dragon looked at Yi Fei in fear. Suddenly, she made a decision and said unwillingly, "There is a true dragon's blood pool on Dragon Emperor Mountain. Not only can it raise one's cultivation level, it can also raise one's bloodline. If you're willing to let me go, I am willing to bring you there. Then I will have to trouble you, sister." Yi Fei nodded secretly. He was curious why the immemorial monster dragon did not run away immediately after raising its bloodline. Instead, it waited for someone to kill it. As expected, after he scared it a little, the immemorial monster dragon could not help but blurt it out. Immediately, Yi Fei kept the ghost deity cauldron and said to Lu Yu, "You can go now." After he finished speaking, he had already jumped onto the back of the immemorial monster dragon. The dragon turtle also ran up excitedly. In its hand, there was a huge dragon pearl. This was the pearl of the true dragon. It was extremely attractive to any member of the dragon tribe. The reason why the dragon turtle was so enthusiastic, as if it was in heat, was because it was attracted by the pearl of the true dragon. It even forgot about Yi Fei's slander. In the beast mark space, Xiao Chao also stared at the true dragon pearl in the dragon turtle's hand. While the dragon turtle was not paying attention, a vine wrapped around the dragon turtle's tail and forcefully dragged it back into the beast mark space. Lu Yu was dumbfounded by this scene. However, when she thought of how powerful Yi Fei was, even the ferocious immemorial monster dragon was submissive to him. Lu Yu, who was only an early-stage Dao Lord, was afraid that she would be silenced. She quickly staggered and ran out of the mountain. "A few days ago, you helped me once. Today, I will save your life. Take it as my reward for letting me into the cave," Yi Fei said to himself. Then he patted the immemorial monster dragon's dragon horn. Chapter 2574. Bloodline Awakening. Young Master, please take a look. This is the real dragon blood pool. It is said that this blood pool is formed from the blood essence of a real dragon. Moreover, this real dragon not only has to be Rinzu's cultivation realm and above, it must have died in a dragon vein to form such a blood pool. Coincidentally, Dragon Emperor Mountain is a huge hidden dragon vein. I entered this place by chance and transformed from a primordial flood dragon into a primordial dragon. After entering the dragon blood pool, the primordial demonic dragon transformed into a pretty girl in a palace dress. Her belly was protruding, and it was obvious that she was pregnant. She looked very pitiful. It seemed like this primordial demonic dragon was still scheming and knew how to gain sympathy. Yi Fei couldn't help but doubt the primordial demonic dragon's words. Unfortunately, before he could say anything, he heard that this was the real dragon blood pool and that it was pure dragon blood. A black shadow rushed out from beside him and jumped into the blood pool, not even bothering with the dragon pearl. It started to refine the blood in a frenzy. This stupid turtle. Yi Fei and Xiao Chao clenched their fists together. They had the urge to grab the dragon turtle and beat it up. However, the primordial demonic dragon, who had transformed into a girl, said calmly, "This little turtle has dragon blood. Naturally, it will be attracted to it and become more impulsive. Once it has absorbed enough dragon blood, it will recover." After speaking, the primordial demonic dragon looked at Yi Fei bashfully. After all, she was also a dragon. The real dragon blood pool was very attractive to her. Even if she couldn't use it now, it would be very beneficial for her to refine more blood and have more children in her womb. This was also the reason why the primordial demonic dragon refused to leave even though she had obtained an opportunity. She wanted to refine this real dragon blood pool. Understanding this point, and seeing that the dragon turtle was indeed in the blood pool, gradually regaining consciousness and no longer looking like a ferocious beast in heat, Yifei nodded silently and jumped into the blood pool with a splash. Sensing the power of the blood pool, the indestructible sword token vibrated excitedly and immediately started to absorb the power of the blood pool. The entire blood pool started to churn like boiling water, causing the immemorial demon dragon to turn pale. The dragon turtle, on the other hand, suddenly woke up from that intense state of temptation. Roar? The dragon turtle looked left and right. It had no idea what was going on, let alone why it had entered the blood pool. The dragon turtle looked at Yifei. Yifei was cultivating crazily. It looked at Xiao Qiao. Xiao Qiao wasn't interested in the blood pool. He was hugging the shiny dragon ball and sleeping soundly. Finally, the dragon turtle looked at the immemorial demon dragon. The demon dragon was frightened. After all, she was a flood dragon that had transformed into a dragon. She was naturally afraid of a natural enemy like the dragon turtle. However, Yifei, who was immersed in cultivation, was completely unaware of all this. After absorbing a large amount of true dragon blood, Yifei instantly felt that the dried-up bloodline in his body actually showed signs of recovery. This was an extremely inconceivable matter, causing Yifei to be secretly shocked. I never imagined that the energy of this true dragon blood pool would be able to restore my bloodline. This is great. With my bloodline restored, even without the divine ghost furnace, I will be able to restore my strongest combat strength. Undying Sword Soul absorb. Rumble. Not only did Yifei use the Sword Soul and the Undying Sword token to absorb and refine the true dragon blood pool, he also released the Undying Sword Soul that he had comprehended. It formed a black hole and crazily absorbed the energy of the blood pool. The energy of the Dragon Emperor Mountain's dragon vein was much stronger than what the immemorial demon dragon had imagined. The energy of the dragon vein's blood pool was extremely terrifying. It was this blood pool that attracted a large number of dragon bloodline demonic beasts from the vicinity of the Dragon Emperor Mountain. They gathered here and formed a dangerous area around Sky Dragon City. However, no matter how strong the blood pool was, it couldn't withstand Yifei's crazy absorption. The dragon turtle only soaked in the blood pool for a day before its dragon blood burned and became extremely pure. It quickly left the blood pool. The immemorial demon dragon persisted for half a day before it couldn't withstand the true dragon aura of the dragon pool. It walked out of the blood pool helplessly. Only Yifei didn't seem to feel the energy explosion. His body became extremely huge. It was as if a bloodline of vicious beasts had awoken from extreme hunger. It opened its mouth and devoured all the energy of the blood pool. Boom! As Yifei devoured the energy, the ability of the entire Dragon Emperor Mountain to attract the bloodline of vicious beasts completely disappeared. Yifei's bloodline was gradually filled with the enhancement of a large amount of dragon blood. It's a pity that the energy of the blood pool is still too little. It can only restore my bloodline to rank 10, but it can't raise my bloodline to rank 11. Yifei sighed secretly. He walked out of the blood pool that had dried up into a valley. The moment he walked out, Yifei's body suddenly exploded. After absorbing the energy of the dragon blood, Yifei was surprised to find that his cultivation level had increased from early God Realm to late God Realm. Moreover, he had automatically comprehended a type of level 5 order, the law of the true dragon. The true dragon is a natural emperor. I never thought that a commoner like me would be able to condense the emperor's aura. Doesn't this mean that I can cultivate the Imperial Sky cultivation technique like the Scarlet Moon Ancient Emperor and Luo? Yifei suddenly recalled the golden page that the dragon turtle had kept. Not only did it record the method to break through to the ancient god realm, but it also contained a method to condense the Imperial Celestial Handle. However, In order to condense the imperial celestial handle, one had to be born with a noble aura. It would be best if one had the emperor's aura. Only then would one be able to condense the imperial celestial handle. This also restricted those who cultivated this cultivation technique. They had to be children of nobility or the imperial family. At this moment, Yi Fei had never thought that refining the true dragon blood pool would not only restore his bloodline, but also give him the emperor's aura. This emperor's aura was enough to support him in condensing the imperial celestial handle. However, now is not the time to cultivate. I have already spent a few days refining the true dragon blood pool. Even if Lu Yu did not betray me, Family Wang would be suspicious if this drags on. He would send people to investigate this place again. Thinking of this, Yi Fei did not dare to delay. He threw the dragon turtle, who was still in a daze, back into the beast-marked space. Then, he bid farewell to the immemorial demonic dragon and went their separate ways. The immemorial demonic dragon quickly left the Dragon Emperor Mountain to find a safe place to wait for her delivery. Yi Fei took the map that Wang Chong had given him and decided to go to Sky Dragon City to take a look. However, Yi Fei did not know that not long after he left the Dragon Emperor Mountain, a large group of people from Family Wang had already rushed towards the Dragon Emperor Mountain. However, this time, the leader was not Family Wang, but a young man who was dressed even more luxuriously. Damn it, you bunch of trash. Since you know that the immemorial demonic dragon has obtained the pearl of the true dragon, you should know that wherever the pearl of the true dragon appears, there is a high possibility that there is a true dragon blood pool hidden. Why didn't you report such a big matter to the Muyang Palace earlier? Chapter 2575. However, this luxurious young man was still one step too late. When he led his men into the mountain and found the real dragon blood pool based on the aura left behind by the immemorial monster dragon, the entire blood pool had already dried up. The dragon veins of the entire Dragon Emperor Mountain had also been used up. The luxurious young man roared furiously. Family Wang's warriors were all furious. They found a large number of corpses on the ground. They were all Family Wang's warriors' corpses. As for the Lu family's corpses, they had already been taken away by Lu Yu. However, taking away the corpses did not remove the Lu family's suspicion. After all, the dragon hunt this time was a joint operation between Family Wang and the Lu family. Now that all Family Wang's warriors were dead, Lu Yu and the others who were in charge of providing support were nowhere to be found. The furious Wang clan cultivators quickly shifted their suspicions to the Lu clan. In order not to anger the luxurious young man, these Family Wang's warriors immediately said, "Little prince, other than our Family Wang, the Lu family also participated in this operation. Now that our Family Wang's warriors are dead, the ones who killed them and emptied the real dragon blood pool are most likely the Lu family." Hearing this, the luxurious young man's expression became even worse. He asked coldly, "Lu family? But Lu Yu's Lu family? What a coincidence." Squeak, squeak. Yi Fei felt very unlucky. The first thing he did when he entered Sky Dragon City was being urged by Xiao Qiao to look for places that sold Tonghalu. The dragon turtle also took the opportunity to say that as a poor little turtle, it had not eaten delicious dragon meat buns for a long time. Yi Fei could only run to the restaurant where Wang Chong was. Seeing that Yi Fei was able to walk out of the Dragon Emperor Mountain alive, Wang Chong was very surprised. "Brother, how did you get out? You are too daring. Do you know that the dragon hunt this time was not for Family Wang, but for the Muyang Palace? Luckily you came back quickly. If you were a little later and were seen by the people from the Muyang Palace, you would definitely be dead." "What? Are the people from the Muyang Palace that overbearing?" Yi Fei asked curiously. When he left the Dragon King Mountain, Xiao Qiao did sense that someone was approaching the Dragon King Mountain. At that time, he didn't pay much attention to it. Those people should be from the Muyang Palace. Wang Chong sighed. The Muyang Palace is more than overbearing. If you anger them, you might lose your life. Especially the seventh prince, Qin Gang, who went there this time. His methods are the most vicious. It is said that there was a family Wong that offended him, and it was Qin Gang behind the scenes. Yifei was very surprised. Brother Wong, where did you get this information from? After all, Wong Gang was only an Empyrean. Logically speaking, he shouldn't know such insider information. Wang Chong seemed to have been waiting for this sentence. He proudly pointed at the restaurant behind him and said, "Brother, I'm different from you. You wander around, but I have a family, a business, a wife, and a child. Do you see the sign at the back? Wangji Restaurant. This is my family business." Most of the information I got was heard from the drinkers by chance. Yifei finally understood. Since ancient times, it was the most convenient place to gather information in a restaurant. Moreover, although Wang Chong was only an insignificant Empyrean, he seemed to be very good at running a restaurant. Those who came to his restaurant were either the Lord of Heaven or Taoist lords. These were the backbone of Sky Dragon City. The information they unintentionally revealed was naturally very reliable. "Wait, Brother Wong, you didn't call me over just to be your assistant, right?" Yifei was very depressed when he discovered Wang Chong's bad intentions. Wang Chong didn't blush when he heard this. He just sighed helplessly and said, "I have no choice. My wife is pregnant recently, and she has to be responsible for brewing Family Wong's secret wine. I don't want her to work too hard, so I thought of asking you for help. If you are willing, you can come and help me. Your salary is 1,000 Xian stones per month. How about it?" 1,000? Yifei was completely speechless. He felt an inexplicable heartache. It seemed that the dragon turtle ate a month's worth of his salary. "Brother Wong, I appreciate your kindness, but I still have some savings. If you have good wine, I could buy a few jars." Yifei realized that the customers in the restaurant seemed to be here for the good wine of Wong Restaurant. His craving was also aroused. "All right, give me a few hundred dragon meat buns, too." In the beast-marked space, the dragon turtle was beaming with joy. It hugged the huge, true dragon pearl contentedly and breathed continuously. Wang Chong's eyes widened when he saw Yifei take out several tens of thousands of Xian stones in one breath. Then his face became serious. "Brother, this is your fault. How can I take your money when you call me brother? Besides, we Empyreans are weak and are the easiest to target. It's fine if we get robbed, but it's not worth it if we lose our lives. Hurry up and put away your Xian stones. Since we hit it off so well at first sight, feel free to drink my family Wong's good wine." Then, "Thank you, brother." Yifei didn't stand on ceremony. He could tell that Wang Chong was also a forthright person. It wouldn't be good if he rejected too much. At the same time, he was also very curious about Wang Chong's unique good wine. He walked into the Family Wong restaurant with Wang Chong. "Brother, this is my family Wong's good wine. If you like it, take a few more jars. I still have something to do in front, so I need to go and greet them." Wang Chong led Yifei to the wine storehouse and hurriedly ran out. Outside the restaurant, a strong monarch god aura was clearly emitted. Those who could come to drink were all customers. Naturally, they wouldn't casually emit their aura. To be able to emit their aura in such an unbridled manner, they naturally weren't just here to drink. Yifei thought for a while. It wouldn't be good for him to just take the wine and leave. Instead, he released his divine sense and looked outside. The one who came in was a white-haired old man at the early stage monarch god realm. His face was filled with insufferably arrogance. At this moment, he was lecturing a pregnant woman. "Qian Fong, you are still a member of my Qian family. Back then, my Qian family had already lost all faith by marrying you to that wretched Wang Chong. You have also been expelled from the Qian family. Now, what face do you have to beg for mercy from me? Let me tell you, it's useless even if you kneel down today. This restaurant was originally my Qian family's property. Allowing you and your wife to run this place for 10 years is already my Qian family's greatest tolerance. Finally, I'll give you one more month. Either hand over 100,000 Xian stones or scram out of Sky Dragon City with that wretched Wang Chong." The old man's words made Qian Fong's face pale. She didn't dare to talk back. She just kept bowing to the old man in an attempt to change his mind. However, The old man only sneered and turned a deaf ear to her. At this moment, Wang Chong ran out furiously and roared loudly, "Don't beg him. Isn't it just 100,000 Xian stones? You said it yourself. If we hand over the Xian stones, this restaurant will be ours from today onwards. It will no longer have anything to do with the Qian family." Chapter 2576. Husband, you can't do that. That is the money we use to buy the low-tier dragon blood for our son. If we give it to him, then our son's injuries. Qianfang's expression turned nervous. Wang Chong's expression also turned gloomy. However, Wang Chong still gritted his teeth and handed the interspatial belt over to the Qian family's insult. The Divine Lord Elder did not accept it. He even used an even more disdainful gaze to stare coldly at Wang Chong. He shouted coldly, "A broken family is indeed a broken family. The 100,000 profound stones that I mentioned is the compensation for occupying my Qian family's restaurant for the past few years. However, my Qian family has always been merciful. How about this? Seeing that you are pitiful, if you take out 1,000,000 profound stones in one go, I will make the decision to sell this restaurant to you." Boom! The Divine Lord Elder's words caused an uproar among the guests who came to drink. Low-level warriors, other than those from large family clans, would not have many profound stones. In the end, the Qian family's 100,000 profound stones was not enough. They even demanded an exorbitant price, increasing it tenfold in the blink of an eye. This completely infuriated Wang Chong. "Qian family, how is this selling the restaurant? You are clearly forcing us into a dead end." Qianfang also said with grief and indignation, "This restaurant was passed down to me by my father. What does it have to do with your Qian family? After so many years, you did not find trouble with us. You just had to find trouble with us now. Third uncle, do you really think I don't know your intentions? The Qian family's goal is to force my husband to hand over the brewing recipe. Bitch, shut up." The Divine Lord Elder was enraged. Suddenly, the Divine Lord's aura shook Qianfang and Wang Chong, causing them to vomit blood and retreat. Wang Chong was still fine, as he was only injured. However, Qianfang was pregnant and was from the Qian family. This Divine Lord was still cold and emotionless, which inevitably infuriated the crowd. However, the person standing in front of everyone was a Divine Lord. The Qian family was also a large family in Sky Dragon City. The surrounding guests were furious, but they did not dare to say anything. Wang Chong and Qianfang's faces were filled with despair. 100,000 profound stones were all they had. How could they take out 1,000,000 profound stones? However, if they did not hand over the profound stones, they would be chased out of the restaurant and even Sky Dragon City. At that time, they had no one to rely on. With the Qian family's viciousness and their desire for Wang Chong's brewing pill recipe, how could they let this family off so easily? Qianfang was crying. She ignored the pain in her abdomen and the blood in her mouth as she held Wang Chong's hand and said, "Husband, let's give up. We can die, but our child is innocent. If we don't hand over the pill formula, I'm afraid our child might be." "Bitch, how dare you spout nonsense? In any case, my Qian family still has some reputation in Sky Dragon City. How could I possibly be interested in some crappy pill formula? This old man wanted you to get out of Sky Dragon City purely because I wanted to take back the properties that originally belonged to my Qian family. Who would have thought that you would not know what is good for you and slander this old man? Then this old man can only take action and punish you." The Divine Lord Old Man had a solemn expression. What a sanctimonious man. At this moment, he was even more enraged. He wanted to take a big step forward and continue to punish Wang Chong and Qianfang for their great disrespect. It was also at this moment that a cold voice suddenly came from behind the old man. "I heard that the wine here was good, so I specially came to taste it. Who would have thought that I would meet an old dog barking nonstop here? It's really disappointing." Boom! The youth's words were like a clap of thunder, shocking everyone. The people here were either the Lord of Heaven or the Tao Lords. There were also many low-level cultivators. who would not tremble in fear when they saw a divine lord. Now, someone actually dared to call the Qian family's divine lord an old dog. Everyone's gaze focused on the youth who spoke. They saw that this youth was wearing a bronze mask. Draped in a scarlet robe, he looked like an Azura that walked out of hell. He exuded a very dangerous aura. Sensing Yi Fei's aura, the Qian family's divine lord old man's expression immediately changed. Middle stage divine lord. Who are you? I am the Qian family's Qian Zheng. Scram. Don't delay me from buying the wine. The youth shouted coldly. A true dragon's aura suddenly appeared from his body. It was as if an emperor had descended and was filled with endless threat. Generally, people who possessed such an aura were disciples of aristocratic families. It was even possible that they were from the royal family or even the imperial family. The old man's expression changed drastically. He no longer had the overbearing aura that he used to intimidate Wang Chong. Instead, he carefully cupped his hands towards Yi Fei and said, "May I know if young master is from the Miang Palace?" "My Qian family." Boom. Without any words, a huge universal cauldron came smashing towards the old man. The old man was shocked and angry. He tried his best to block it, but the youth's attack was too sudden. The universal cauldron was too powerful. At the same time, 6 heavenly cauldrons blasted forward. The Qian family's divine lord old man was already bleeding from his head. His face was covered in blood as he spat out blood. What I hate the most is when someone affects my mood when I'm drinking. You have 3 breaths to get out of my sight. Otherwise, die. A terrifying, demonic killing intent suddenly erupted from the youth's body. Demonic Dao martial artist? The Qian family's divine lord old man's expression changed drastically. It should be known that demonic Dao martial artists were temperamental. Perhaps a small matter could cause them to go on a killing spree. Originally, the old man wanted to say a few words. Once he felt Yi Fei's cold, killing intent, the Qian family's divine lord old man was so scared that he didn't even dare to let out a fart. He could only leave in frustration and anger. Qianfang also looked at the masked youth in front of her with a horrified expression. Wang Chong, on the other hand, still managed to muster up his courage. He cupped his hands and said, "Senior, you can take as much wine as you want. I only ask that you don't hurt my wife and child. Don't worry, I'm just here to drink. I'm not interested in anything else." The masked youth coldly walked into the restaurant. Although he did not show any killing intent, all the customers in the restaurant were instantly scared away when they saw a divine lord enter the restaurant. Furthermore, it was a temperamental, demonic Dao divine lord. This made the youth who walked into the restaurant smile bitterly in his heart. "Xiao Qiao, am I that scary?" Xiao Qiao shook his head repeatedly, indicating that Yi Fei wasn't scary at all. He was just a little silly. Yi Fei frowned. He was very depressed. At this moment, Wang Chong brought his wife over, trembling in fear. He thanked him again. "Senior, thank you for your help. May I ask how much wine Senior wants?" "The more the better. Also, give me a few hundred dragon meat buns." Yi Fei still wore the bronze mask. Wang Chong's cultivation realm was too low, and he didn't want to implicate Wang Chong. "Dragon meat buns? Why does he look like the brother I just met?" With a mask and a changed voice, Wang Chong naturally didn't know that the person standing in front of him was Yi Fei. On the contrary, when he thought of leaving Yi Fei alone in the wine vault, Wang Chong felt somewhat embarrassed. He quickly brought Qianfang to the wine vault, but Yi Fei was nowhere to be seen. Qianfang was puzzled. "Husband, didn't you have a friend here? Where is he?" You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.